YouTube going there. Okay, welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, cross-ideological space, where we can come together, both the left and the right, and the center, and discuss topics both political and topical, from the silly to the serious. So, I know normally I do panels. I have 6 to 8 people on here all screaming at each other, but I thought, you know what? I want to try to do more one-on-one debates. So today we're going to be having one of those. We're going to be talking about men's issues. And who is better when it comes to men's issues? The right or the left? Who is better able to address the issues a modern man faces? Both of these individuals are people whose opinions I respect, and I think will give interesting perspectives on their side of things, if you will. So I guess first and foremost, how you both doing today? Doing good? Feeling good?
Doing
happy to be here.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm happy that you're here too. I guess we'll start off with opening statements, then we'll get into it. If at any time I tell you to shut up, please shut up. It's because no one can hear you when you're screaming over each other. I will be interjecting with questions as we go. If I feel that something's unclear, if I'm confused, my audience is probably confused. Or if I feel like you're not answering a question, I will probably jump in and try to pin you down on that, just so we can get an answer. But yeah, we'll start with 𝕍𝖎. Go ahead. Let's hear what you got.
All right. I think my opening statement would be pretty brief, not too long. I'm pretty, dare I would say, apolitical. So usually when I use left and right, I think of them more as a personality type. I look at more what type of people align with different political positions or the political spectrum. So if I'm going to come here and defend the right, I'm more defending a character and a personality type than any specific type of policy. And when I look at the character of people who oftentimes associate with the right wing, we find more people who are, as you would say, into traditional family values. As such, they want to have relationships between each other. They have clear, strong, defined goals, strong, defined roles. They know what it means to be a man, and they have some idea, usually, of what it means to be a woman. So if we were going to specifically talk about how the right helps young men, at the very least, whether we can argue with what the criterion of what it means to be a man is, the right has that. We have an idea of what it means to be a man, a protector, a provider, a leader, someone who looks, plans ahead, tries to make sure that their family is protected and well taken care of. That is something that I see is hilariously lacking in the left wing of people. Typically, I see far more deconstruction of males and masculinity, more conversations and talks about toxic masculinity, more so the wrong code of conduct to be a man, but never any actual good code of conduct on how to be a man. And as such, it leaves a lot of young men lost and kind of hating themselves, but no clear path forward and how to actually strive to the ideals of what it means to be virtuous and good. And as such, when we see so much deconstruction, at best, we're left with confused people who don't know what to do. At worst, we're left with people that hate themselves, despise the fact that they are males, reject their masculinity, and try to do anything and everything they can to move away from literally the idea of manhood and masculinity. So that is why I cannot jive with the left wing and their constant deconstruction and outright, I would say in some cases, hatred of young men.
Okay. Strong start. We'll see how it goes. Chris Speaks, you're up. What you got for us?
Yeah, thanks. So I think that the red pill is appealing to a lot of people because it tends to acknowledge some sort of underlying biological realities that resonate with men. Now, unfortunately, then they spin them around to either make the situation out to be worse than it really is, or they completely misconstrue the conclusion and then they proceed to do nothing, nothing to provide actual solutions. I think that the whole movement is rapidly becoming a fucking joke, and we pretend like that's not the case because we're so desperate for male role models. And honestly, that's partially the left's fault as well. Unfortunately, we fail to see that many of these people make a massive amount of money off of men and their sadness. It's not really in their business model to see us elevate ourselves above our struggles. And as it stands right now, it seems like, at least to me, that the articles written on how to alleviate men's struggles favor the arguments brought forward by the left. The conclusions from studies that I was able to find favor the arguments brought forward by the left. And the historical precedents for why these issues need to be spoken about favor the arguments brought forward by the left. Brought forward by the left, sorry. And it seems to me, again, at least when I was doing some research for this and from my past experience in the Red Pill, that all they can do, especially nowadays, is fall prey to success bias, lie to us for no good reason, and write books that can be literally boiled down to who hurt you. That probably came as a result of their divorce. Now, look, I have a lot of sympathy for sort of Jordan Peterson style Red Pill, if you can even call it that, but what we get today just ain't it. So if I was to describe sort of my core issues with the Red Pill ideology, so we can move the conversation in that direction, it's that one, it's unnecessarily combative. It is, number two, incredibly materialistic. Three, it fundamentally fails to alleviate the issues it acknowledges men have. And four, it is riddled with hypocrisy at every step, which is really what you'd expect once you find out that the movement is by and large spearheaded by grifters. Now, all of these are my core issues, and this is all without going into how much Red Pill tends to overlap with Black Pill, the weird fucking hatred for long distance relationships, the even weirder hatred for single mothers. And now look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the left has it all worked out and figured out, that we're beyond fault, and that any problems you will throw at me, I'll immediately have a study to solve it, because I will not, right? Even today on the left, there are a lot of hostile spaces to men. And I think anyone who exists on the left as a man knows that to be true. Now, there's not anywhere near as many of them as there used to be, but there's still quite a few, and having been slighted by those before myself, I understand why people might feel some type of way. But in every single cultural movement, you'll have some bad apples. And in this case, it were the people whose entire social analysis boiled down to white man bad. Now, in order for this conversation to go forward, I really want to put pressure on everyone understanding that this really isn't the space anymore, right? The online leftism is no longer this fucking weird whack-a-mole of someone trying to pinpoint what kind of a bigot you are so they can dismiss you to just that one point. Now, we have a long way to go, but at least we aren't going to make you go through life resenting women.
Okay, and with that, go ahead, gang. See what you got.
So I think at the top, it would appear that you are, how do I say? Because I don't want to be rude to you, but it looks like your ideals, or your idea of the manosphere or the Red Pill is mostly Andrew Tate'ites or guys that follow, the more success gurus like Justin Waller, Rollo Tomasi, Fresh and Fit. It would appear that your understanding of the manosphere Red Pillars is just those type of followers who want to go to the gym, get success, and then get women and do whatever. Is that a nice summation?
I mean, it's not so much wrong as I would really put pressure on the fact that this isn't just my idea of the Red Pill. This is what the Red Pill space has become. Being someone who's been on that side, even if you want to look at pre-Andrew Tate people, if you want to look at people like Anthony Dream Johnson or Rich Cooper, people like Coach Red Pill or Rollo Tomasi, they have gone off the fucking rails. And now you can make an argument for sure that look, there are people in the Red Pill that make reasonable points and give you decent advice, but these people aren't spearheading the movement.
Mm-hmm. I want to move away. I'm sorry, but I want to move away from specific individuals within the movement, and I want to get to what they teach and what they preach and what they advocate for, both the Red Pill movement and also in leftist ideology. And this is to Chris speaks first. When it comes to Red Pill ideology, as you understand it, right? What is your biggest contention with the ideology of itself? Can you kind of, maybe we could start there and then we can just kind of use it as a ball to move forward, right?
Yeah. So that will be kind of answered by the points I raised in the opening statement. So my first issue is that it is unnecessarily combative, and what I mean by that is that it sort of pits men and women against each other instead of sort of taking the approach of this is a mutual struggle where we need to be helping one another, and whilst we both struggle, we can alleviate or we can elevate one another above this. And then two, I would say, and I don't know if this would be sort of my biggest issue, but it is incredibly materialistic. Now, what 𝕍 said that at least the Red Pill gives you an idea of what a man is supposed to be is absolutely true. But by that same token, it also gives them an excellent idea of what they can compare you to and rip you to fucking shreds if you don't match against. And you will see that like any hobbies that men might have in these spaces that don't directly correlate with getting more women or making more money are incredibly frowned upon.
Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing we can agree on actually is I'm not fond of the materialism that a lot of the, I guess you want to call them grifters, are preaching. So I can't defend that, and I wouldn't defend that, and I argue against it regularly. I don't think the materialism of the quote high value male is a good measure or barometer of masculinity. But I think one problem I have is the idea that the red pill is combative to women. It seems that you're not really grasping the kind of like where this idea comes from. It's reactionary to the fact that a lot of young ladies are doing a real, dare I would say, piss poor job of kind of having good relationships with men. A lot of the men that come to this space oftentimes come here because they were mistreated by women or they don't understand how to have some type of relationship with them. The rabbit hole of materialism, the reason why young men are trying or striving so hard to get a whole bunch of money and things is to get to women. The reason why the red pill is so combative to women is because women, feminism, started the whole thing. It was feminist. It was what was it? Dworkins, who said women need men like a fish needs a bicycle, something like that. The idea that men are not necessary and aren't an important part of a family structure, that was from feminism and the left wing from start to finish. That pushed young men out. It ripped away the bedrock of what gave us some degree of self-esteem or understanding, and the red pill is trying to come back and give it back to them. If we don't have an understanding of where it comes from in the first place, then like we can't have any solution at all. The main reason why the red pill has to be so, as you say, combative against women is because feminists are combative against men in principle. Like if you say that men aren't necessary at all, if we have all these different books about how there's something wrong with men, of course the guys are going to react like, well, I'm not this nasty, terrible person. I'm not this bad guy. I'm not this. Of course they're going to be upset. Of course they're going to be mad. So again, as far as the materialism is concerned, I would agree. I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary. But the reason why we have to combat young ladies and argue with them so much is because this might sound childish, but they started it. They were the ones who asserted they didn't need us. And why don't they need us? Because they have their own money. So the logical train is rather simple. Women say, well, we don't need men anymore because men don't have enough money. The red pill comes and says, okay, young men, so you need enough money. That's where their materialism comes from. Again, I don't agree with it, but there is a clear logic to get to here that I don't think that you're contending with as a first mover.
Well, yeah, the problem that I have is that you say that, like, of course, men will react this way, right? It's like a sort of a response to feminism sort of becoming a more popular movement. But the problem I have is that that doesn't excuse anything that's taking place. If you have someone on one side of the fence yelling to kill all white people, then the answer isn't someone on the other side of the fence yelling kill all black people. You've explained to me why they're combative, but you aren't excusing any of it. And I just want to, because
no, but
I understand that
Wick
said,
because that's an awful comparison. Ironically,
no, but hold
most
on.
of what
It's
the red pill
just
says
before
is to become attractive to women. So
yes, and how do they say it? Yeah, how do
they
they say to be? How do they say that
Go
you
to
need
the
to become
gym.
attractive to women? Sure, go to the
Right.
gym. Yeah,
Go to the
no
gym.
issues there whatsoever.
Get a high-paying job. So either you pursue your education or you pursue your hustle, you pursue whatever you're doing, and then you learn game. And in game and learning how to court women, there's a lot of, you could say, manipulative tactics, but it's not about arguing with them or fighting with them or putting them down. It's about becoming the man that they want, that they respond to. What's the type of man that they would respond to? Sometimes an aloof kind of dick guy that's cool. It looks like he's throwing money around that they like. If women are attracted to that, how are you going to be upset at the red pill for recognizing that? At what point do we look at the women?
The issue isn't the issue. You seem to misunderstand what I'm saying. The issue isn't that the red pill has identified that like women have some biological markers that they're attracted to. Because if that's what they did and that's where they ended, there would be no issues whatsoever from my side. The problem that I have is that you will have examples, and you will have a ton of examples of very popular red pill content creators and people who spearhead the place who are massively sexist in their rhetoric. And in that sexist rhetoric, they will take something that they hate from women, such as promiscuity, and then they will simultaneously go on podcasts telling men that they need to fuck as much as they can, and they need to enjoy themselves as much as they can. But then simultaneously, they will hate on the women that type of teaching creates, because we've seen how many times people like Fresh and Fit have shit on women who have a high body count, but simultaneously they will give advice to men to fuck as much as they want without caring for something like creating a family or trying to be monogamous. Like the whole one-sided open relationship where you as a man get to have as many side bitches as you'd like, but they have to be loyal to you. That's a product entirely of the red pill.
No, I'll give you that one, and I don't like it, and I don't fight for that. I think it's absolutely nonsensical. The problem that I have that you aren't contending with is that this works. This is what a lot of women are attracted to. If women are selecting these type of men, why are you more upset at the men for existing like this than the masses of women picking them?
What makes you feel like I am only, like my issue here is only with the men and not with the women?
Well, we've only been discussing the quote high value males, for lack of a better term, that you're bringing up. We haven't discussed
my
the
issue
304,
isn't,
as we call them, that fly around them like flies, or the women that go on the Fresh and Fit podcast. Why do the women find themselves on the Fresh and Fit podcast from start to finish?
Well, hold on.
They're attracted to those
that's well, yes and no. People go on a podcast like the Fresh and Fit because it's a massive way of gaining an audience. If you're any type of a content creator or anyone who's like a social media influencer, you will go on a podcast that's from a bigger content creator in order to get your voice out there. None of that goes against any of the points that I have raised, that like this space is festered with toxicity and festered specifically with sexism, which is quite ironic because for people who pretend that like women are just this secondary kind of fucking apparel to a high value man, seem to entirely build their confidence based on how many women would like to fuck them.
No, you're absolutely correct. It is hypocritical there, and I don't support those guys, and I don't think they're reasonable. But the reason why I would still think that the red pill space is much better is because we can actually have these conversations where we try to find some solutions. Like what the red pill has done is distill the most effective solution, and you're not arguing against the most effective solution. I want a woman in my life. How do I get that woman? I become physically attractive, I get more social status, and I get a better job. That's just that. Now everything else that gets sprinkled in here, like you would say one-sided open relationship, certainly is nonsense, and no woman has to accept that. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, even if the woman doesn't accept the one-sided open relationship, she's still gonna want that Bruce Wayne guy, the muscular dude with a whole bunch of money and social status. She's still picking that guy. So unless we start addressing why this is the case, and then what are we doing? We're just upset at the top of the summit being mean to women. Too bad, so sad. Those women keep picking those men. If women pick those men who mistreat them, what are we supposed to do?
Well, no, hold on. It's like you've put together a bunch of things that don't necessarily make sense to me. You've earlier pointed out that maybe I am somewhat blinded by the fact that like I only focus on the red pillars that have like this particular sexist outlook, and you're pointing out that like I'm not contending with that like you.
More higher.
Yeah, but the problem is that I think that this sort of misguided optimism is coming from you in here, not from me. The reason why I focus on these people is because they're the biggest names in these spaces. When you Google for the red pill advice, these are the people that you will bump into. And these are the people. The reason why I'm not contending with something like hit the gym is because that is your most milquetoast advice that you will get from everyone on the left as well. The reason why I said earlier is that we need to understand that the leftist is no longer like a whack-a-mole of this is the type of bigot that you are, therefore I win the argument, is because that is still the impression that you have in your head. When you say to me right now that at least in the red pill they can have these conversations, that makes it very clear to me that you have an image of the left in your head that is very, very far from the actual reality.
Okay,
I don't think that's fair.
Let me interject if I may. In that case, Chris, what would you say the best advice that the left gives to men is? What do you think? What is the piece of advice that the left is giving to men that the right isn't, right? That is transformative to these young men, that helps the problem?
Yeah, so I think that generally speaking, when it comes to kind of like the leftist male models that you could point to, some people like Hunter Avalon kind of springs to mind. People like Abba and Preach potentially. I know, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. The reason why I've started this way is because I'm saying if you don't think that Hunter Avalon is a good male role model, you are like fucking delusional.
I've argued with Hunter on several different occasions.
I don't doubt that you did, but to say that like he's not a good. Okay, we can go into that in a sec.
I can explain why.
The reason why. Yeah, as soon as I've answered Wick's question, I think that one of of the better pieces of advice that I've sort of seen, and this kind of resonates with what the Red Pillars are saying, except that it's not fucking riddled with insecurity and sexism, is to build up yourself around sort of these pillars of competence that you can have in your life. So you, obviously, it's difficult if we've gone through like a deconstruction of what it means to be a man, for you to sort of pick and choose your own values, because it's not a fair standard to assume that everyone can do that. But at the same time, the left, broadly speaking, doesn't shit on you for wanting to be a manly man. The left doesn't shit on you for wanting to hit the gym, or for wanting to have a nuclear family, or for wanting to be the provider. The problem here is how you arrive at those conclusions. So if you want to be a provider for your family, if you want to be the breadwinner, and if you want to hit the gym, the left is perfectly fine with you doing that. The question is whether you've sort of arrived at that conclusion because this is what resonates with you, or because you aren't talking about being in a relationship, but you're talking about breaking in an animal when it comes to love life. And that's what the Red Pill does.
So my first question that I had was, how many of these leftists actually adhere to these principles, right? How many of them go to the gym? How many of them strive to build wealth? How many of them are any sort of, you would say, image of masculinity as like a strong person? I mean, the closest you might get maybe might be like 𝕾𝖎𝖙, but the rest of these guys,
when you
they
say
don't go
strong
to the gym.
person, just so I can clarify, because I think this is
I could
exactly
even
hitting the
mean
nail on the
strong
head.
both morally, and I can say strong physically. Because 𝕾𝖎𝖙
but so
doesn't really
what
have
I've
the
mentioned,
strength of
but
character to withstand logical arguments when it's in his face. I've argued with him very politely, very kindly on his trans issue. I actually think I uploaded it on my channel. At the end of it, he's the one who ends up getting emotional, breaks down, blocks and bans me when I was calm and rational the entire time. Is that your view of manhood? Is that the type
The problem
of
that
men
I have is that you have done a brilliant, you've done so many things that I absolutely love. So for starters, I've just said that building yourself up around pillars of confidence that you associate to be worth it from like the masculinity perspective is a brilliant thing to do. So for instance, if you don't think that hitting the gym is one of those things, then as far as I am concerned, you can build yourself up another way. I don't consider that to be a requirement, because then I don't want that to be
anything. It could just be anything. Just whatever you feel like it, then that's what it is.
Wait, no. So what you think is that it's significantly better to give this rigid standard, and then if somebody like 𝕾𝖎𝖙 doesn't live up to that standard once, then you will go on a panel show and you will say how he's not an image of masculinity in your head. I'm sure that goes so much further in alleviating men's issues when you take an opportunity to shit on them because of a single mistake that they've made.
I'll tell you exactly why. The problem with Hunter isn't the fact that he looks physically weak. I mean, that's just our lizard brain immediately saying, oh, we're not going to respect that. That's not even the problem. The problem is mentally and emotionally, when rubber hits the road, when he's faced with an argument he doesn't like, he folds, he cracks, he doesn't have a spine. He cannot stand up to the fire of debate, despite the fact that he wants to be a debate bro. I've seen him over and over and over again. I still watch him from time to time become super emotional, not address the point, start insulting people, and being upset and halfway crying about whatever's going on. That is not someone to respect.
I'm
just fine.
I'm just gonna like it's okay, right? To talk about Hunter as examples and things like that. That's perfectly fine. I'm just saying, see, he sometimes does watch my show, so if he hears this and wants on, I'm gonna have to let him on to respond to that. I'm just
at the same time, you can't. The problem is that 𝕍s is I think that 𝕍s is fundamentally wrong, but you've like he has to be able to talk about these things, because like you've done this earlier as well, Wick, where you're saying to like try and not use specific examples. I have to use specific examples to illustrate how fucking insane this space is.
Okay.
This space being Redpill.
Listen, I think what you're describing is not that the space is insane, but like some of the fresh and fits, or some of the more, again,
yeah,
the
but
summit,
it's not, again, it's not just some of the fresh and fits. It's people like Rich Cooper, Anthony Dream Johnson, fresh and fit, Coach Redpill, Rollo Tomassi,
Apex.
Yeah, do you
understand?
Yes, sure, but do you understand that when you have a movement, and at the top of that movement you've got the apex representatives of that movement, then when all of them fucking signify some sort of a behavior, and you criticize that behavior, then that is the behavior of that space, because everyone at the apex of it is doing that.
Everyone doesn't adhere. That's the problem. See, the problem is the red pill is an umbrella, and the ultimate umbrella of the red pill, and the black pill as well, actually, ironically, there's not even much of a distinction that should be there, is how do we deal with modern women? So how we're going to do that is totally different for a lot of different men. Because then you're talking about the I guess you could say the success gurus. We'll give them the high value males. We'll give them some type of moniker, right? You're talking about those guys who want to be promiscuous, who want to have the closed-ended, open relationships. You're talking about the guys who don't really respect women, who are a little hypocritical. They say they're gonna settle down with the virgin, but then they need 50 bodies. 100%, I get you. I don't like
Yeah,
those
I'm
guys.
talking
I
about the
don't
people who
do them.
spearhead the
Hold
Red Pill
on.
movement.
But
Yeah.
hold on. But here's the problem, though. You then have MGTOW. You then have men going their own way. They say, shoot, screw it. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be a part of this system. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. I'm not going to get married. I'm just going to go focus on my passions. They're gone. They're not even on the internet. They're minding their own business. They come, they chat a little bit, and that's that. Then
When
you
you're a
have
new
young
person
men.
in these
Hold on.
spaces, if I can
Hold
just
on.
if I can
Hold
just
on.
ask you a quick
We'll
clarifier,
get
and then
there.
I will let you.
We'll get to the
Yeah, no, but
everyman, and
I
that's
have
what's
to I have to
important.
ask you I have to ask you this
Stop.
specifically though.
Both of you stop for a moment. I understand that you both want in. You're getting high up and things. So someone paid me to ask you a question. So I'm gonna do that first because I'm a high value man like that. Okay, from Admiral Love. Okay, the Admiral of Love asks this. This is the full statement. To me, it seems like every piece of Red Pill advice is painfully obvious, and what truly makes it unique is how it attempts to use the obvious to naturalize gender relations. To you, Ziku, what is one piece of Red Pill advice that isn't completely obvious?
I think the problem isn't so much that it isn't obvious or that you can't intuit it. It's the fact that young men are raised with the opposite. So the reason why we have the matrix metaphor of the red pill and the blue pill is that the blue pill represents the haze, the delusion that you're raised with, and the red pill represents you being aware of the truth. And the delusion that a lot of young men are raised with is that if you're kind, if you're nice, if you're well spoken, you talk to women like they're normal people, you become friends with them, you care about them, then they will reciprocate in kind. They will appreciate those virtues and those values. There it is. That's how your family starts. The problem is a lot of young ladies don't operate like that. A lot of young ladies, if you are not attractive, if you don't have the status, if you're not the man they want, if you don't trigger the spark immediately when you meet them, they don't want to have much to do with you. So even though some of them might be friends with you, they'll friend zone you, and then they'll use you for your stuff. They'll take money from you, they'll hang out with you, they'll get you to pay for their foodie dates and stuff, but they won't actually love you and care about you and respect you. So a lot of these young men who come to this space, they have had awful relationships with women or none at all. They don't have any experience. They don't even have friends that they say they've talked to. And so they're confused on how do I interact with and talk to women. I was nice. I treated them well. I held the door open for them. I wrote them poems. I was kind. I was sweet. I listened to their problems. I gave them money when they needed to. I helped her move her washing machine into her house. I did all of this stuff. I love this woman. I care about this woman. She still treated me poorly. Why? The red pill comes and says, well, this is why. You didn't trigger her attraction. Well, this is why. You were too soft. Well, this is why. You didn't actually text her the way you're supposed to text her. There's a whole bunch of different stuff in there. There's a whole bunch of different things. But the long and short of it is they're trying to figure out why didn't the woman care about me? And there's lots of reasons why that be the case, but we can't throw the red pill out of the window here because we have, again, the peak high value male dude who wants to be hedonistic. Again, I reject this. I'm with you. That's nonsense. I regularly argue against it all of the time. But that doesn't mean we throw away the rest of
the problem that I have, and it is
hold on, let me finish and I'll let you go. The problem I have
because it
is
his turn next.
we cannot dismiss the rest of the red pill that these young men need because we have the high value male dickheads. That's what I'm saying. Go on.
Yeah, I reject that entirely. The whole point that you're raising with that we cannot throw it out because of these old people at the apex saying these specific things that you disagree with. I am happy that you disagree with them, but it doesn't matter. You're saying essentially, despite the fact that these people are spearheading the movement, despite the fact that when you Google for red pill advice, you get these people, not MGTOW. Sorry, not MGTOW, and not people saying that like, oh, maybe you should just be more careful who you fuck. And you saying that you don't want to throw out the entire movement. I don't think that we should throw out the entire movement. I think that it's good to criticize it when it deserves criticism. I think that there's a huge utility to red pill because there are always going to be people who fall into the black pill who can't just suddenly wake up one day and be like, yes, all of my issues are alleviated. I have now understood the ebb and flow of society and I am ready to be a good old leftist. We need places like red pill so these people can sort of make their views less harmful so they can then be ready to hop onto, let's say, my side of the fence. My point here is that you have said a number of times in the conversation that we've had so far is that like, this is the issue. You know that this is the issue. you agree that this is an issue, and this you also agree with me on, and that you also agree with me on. The materialism you seem to be fine agreeing with me on. The sexism you seem to be fine agreeing with me on. But you're saying that you don't want to throw out the entire movement just because of the people who spearhead it. It just sounds like some weird cope where you're saying that the movement is useful because we need male role models, but the people who are currently in the movement and the male role models are not good for it.
Okay, so here's the problem that I have. One, the problem is you think that we have to accept these guys as male role models just because they're the most popular. We don't.
I think they've already been accepted as that, to be super clear.
But that's not even entirely. But listen, here's the thing. Some of them can be good. Like, for example, you're probably going to hate this one, but 𝕶𝖘 seems to be changing. 𝕶𝖘 seems to be growing up. 𝕶𝖘 recently went on the Fresh and Fit podcast and was saying some really, really great positive things about family creation and actually trying to build up and gaining wealth, not just to be frilly about it and hedonistic, but to actually take care of people you care about. So
sure, and what did 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 respond to that with, just out of curiosity?
I haven't seen that part yet. I need to go research that.
Right, so I can give you, I can tell you how he responded with, what he responded with, rather.
I'm sure you can. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 is silly in many different regards. In fact, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 kind of doesn't even make a lot of sense. He tells young men that they shouldn't get married, yet he's married. He tells young men they shouldn't be making families, yet he made a family. It's silly. It's hypocritical. Again, you're going to have men who don't agree with each other. That's part of the beauty of this space. We can argue, we can disagree, we can figure it out. If we're talking about how the male role models aren't good, again, I just gave you 𝕶𝖘. He seems to be growing up. He seems to be changing. He might be that good male role model. He might. You know, he had a rocky path, sorry to say, for a little bit, but it looks like he's getting back on track. And 𝕶𝖘's not even the only guy in this space. He's not the only person. He might, again, you're looking at the apex, you're looking at the top, and you're saying, okay, we got to throw everything out, or we got to get rid of all this other stuff, all this other important information, because some of them are crappy people. I agree they're crappy people.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying.
Why we argue with them.
No, but if that's the takeaway that you have, then you have like misunderstood what the actual conversation here is about. The topic that we need to stick to is which of these sides is more suited for helping men deal with their issues. You have one side. No, I wish that's
it's the right. I'm sorry. It's
no,
the
what
right.
side? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I promise. $5.50 from Testicle Johnson. It's Canadian money, so it's not really, but we'll read it anyway. It says, women don't care about men at all. They only want one thing, and it's disgusting. They're always after me, Lucky Charms. That's silly. That's dumb, but thank you anyway for the money. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, it seems like the red pill that you're describing is like this amorphous blob where like no matter which side of it I criticize, which behavior, then you'll be like, well, no, I am against that as well. But this isn't the actual red pill. This is the actual red pill. So then I will look at what you say. Well, that's exactly what it feels like your argument is, because when I point out, when I point out that there's fucking sexism ever present in these spaces, you seem to be fine agreeing with the fact that there is sexism ever present. But then you're saying that like we shouldn't throw out the movement because actually there are some people in the movement who aren't sexist. Of course, there are some people in every movement who aren't gonna symbolize the most fucking evil parts of it, but that doesn't really matter. The reason why I think that so much of the red pill needs to go straight into the fucking trash is because of the 4 points that I've described earlier, and these are the 4 points that are ever present when it comes to everyone leading the movement. When it comes to almost every prominent name, they can have the same 4 criticisms levied at them. They're weirdly fucking sexist, they're incredibly materialistic, they're very fucking hypocritical, and they don't actually help men alleviate the issues that men have. And you've mentioned about that last part earlier because of the misconception of what a nice guy is. You can be a nice guy or you can be a nice guy. Nobody likes a nice guy who's like just some fucking creep who thinks that if he's kind enough times. No, what I'm saying is when you have an image in your head that if you're nice to a woman a sufficient amount of times in a row, she might tickle your pickle for you, then that is the problem because that isn't how it works.
Let me ask, why is that wrong? Because if I have enough money, some of you guys are fine with sex workers. If I have enough money, I can just pay the woman. But if I'm nice enough, I can't get what I want. Why is that? Why is paying for her fine? That's nice, isn't?
You misunderstand. The point here isn't that if you're nice an X amount of times and a girl likes that and she decides to lick your pee-pee, then that's a problem. That process is literally how getting into a relationship works. You're nice a number of times and then it eventually works off in your favor. What I'm describing is the expectation that you have into somebody who might not be into you that way.
Okay. Why wouldn't if you're someone nice, have that expectation? Let's just be rational.
Why would someone have an expectation?
Right? Let's be real. In every other relationship, you're pretty much kind to that person. All of your friends, you're nice to them, you do nice things for them, and then they say, "Hey, I like you. You're really nice. I'm going to do nice things back for you." So why is it then when we come to trying to date women, that doesn't translate too? Hey, I'm
Do you know
nice
why
to you. I'll be
it's?
well to you.
Do you know
The
why
woman,
it
and then when it
sucks?
comes to women, they're like, "Wait, he's nice to me. Maybe I should do
Because you
something
need to
back."
have
Like,
because
why doesn't
the
that
entry
work?
level is that you need to the person that you're being nice to needs to be attracted to you in a
There you go.
sexual
And
way.
that's where we get the black pill from, my man. That's
Do you
see, that's
think no? Do you think
but
that
this
it
is why
sucks
the
when you
red pill's
hold on? Let me just
important.
ask you something. Let me just ask you something super quick. Do you think
ahead.
that it sucks to do someone a favor solely so they owe you one, or do you think that's
Sure.
okay behavior?
No, I think it's crappy.
Right, yeah, so that is exactly what we're talking about with doing nice things for someone. Because if you're doing it with the expectation that they will owe you the pum-pum by the end of it, that is the problem that we're
But
having.
if I pay her, why is sex work fine then? If I pay her, I have the same expectation. Why do
it's-
we defend that?
Because
Well, the left.
presumably
Why does the
both
left
parties
defend
have
that?
this. Because both parties have the same expectation. It's a transaction that we take part in. You give me money, I let you fuck me. That is a clear transaction that both sides are agreeing to. If you are a nice guy to me because you're hoping to fuck me, and I have no idea that that is the reason why you're being nice, and I have no attraction to you to begin with, then that isn't a fair transaction where both sides are going into this understanding what's happening.
Okay, but why?
Put a pin in that. I have two things from the audience. Rio Flammel for $5, and this is to you, Siku. Why is it that you believe that women are only interested in men that earn a ton of money? Perhaps you're selecting for a specific pool of women. And I have one more, so after you answer that, we'll get to the one more.
I think it's a nice projection. I don't think that women only select for men with a lot of money. I do think that a lot of women, the vast majority of them, will definitely put on their list of important things for men is to have resources. And the more resources you have, the more likely the woman is going to select you. Is it, of course, possible for a woman to date a man that makes less money than her? Of course, it's possible. Is it likely? If we're dealing with probabilities, if I were to give you a list of men and I even were to give you negative qualities of that man, but he has a lot of money, guess what? A lot of women, more women, are going to pick that man that has a lot of money and the bad qualities than the good man that makes the average salary. That's just the facts. And how do we know that this is the facts? Because women tell all the time. They self-report on TikTok all the time. They have all their different posts. They have their female dating strategies on Reddit right now where they're telling their stories. Women are self-reporting. They keep selecting men like that. So what point are we going to say, okay, all right, women keep saying they're doing it, men are saying they're doing it, it's probably happening. When can we accept that, dear viewer? That's what I want to know.
Wait, can I just push back on that real quick before you ask the next question? Because it's so interesting. You keep saying that women keep selecting men like that, but it kicks into what I was saying earlier. The red pill produces more men who look at it this way. The red pill isn't alleviating the issue here. The red pill is making there to be more individuals who will then struggle in this exact same way. Their business model is to literally always have men who can't get the pum-pum, so there's always someone watching them and paying them money in hopes that they will eventually get that one piece of advice that somebody doesn't know, even though it's really fucking obvious.
Well, I think that's a projection, honestly. To think that the guys are literally thinking to themselves, I'm going to keep you in the same space and the stuff's not going to work. I think that might happen in effect, but I don't know if that's the intention of Fresh and Fit. I don't think that's a fair thing to say.
Okay, fair enough. So what do you think is the intention of somebody who says, let's say, there's no way that you can be rooted in reality and not be sexist? Let's say that's a direct quote. Or a direct quote being that you should get a vasectomy to become a high-value male. What do you think is the...
I think those dumb quotes. It's nonsense.
Right. So do you see the broader problem that I have?
Yeah, with guys like Rollo Tomassi, absolutely. I have problems with Rollo Tomassi. Does that mean that we stop telling young men the reality of the situation?
Look, I reject completely the narrative that the red pill tells guys the reality of the situation, and
so what is the reality?
The left is kind of just fucking coping.
No,
hold on. Let me just finish, because the problem that I have. Let me end the. You've again misunderstood what I'm saying. The point here isn't that the red pill is telling men how it really is, and it's the only place where you can find that information. What I'm telling you, and this is fine for you not to know this because you clearly don't engage in these spaces, is that every single piece of the milk toast advice that you get from the red pill, like hit the gym, like fucking pick clothes that fit you.
You get
a
from
haircut.
leftists too.
You get that from the left, yes,
know,
all the time. That is literally the basic self-help advice. I'm pretty sure I can Google that exactly right now, and I'll get the same advice from fucking Quora. You don't need Red Pill for this advice. This is the most basic shit.
Okay,
so what's the utility of Red Pill if on the tail end of it, it's just filled with sexism and some weird fucking... I can't tell you how many times I've seen people go on Fresh and Fit, or how many times I've seen people go on these like Red Pill panels, and a woman will speak back to them in the same tone that they've been speaking to her with, and their entire fucking worldview and their confidence crumbles like a fucking crouton.
That still seems more like projection. I don't know what you're talking about. Myron definitely doesn't crack under pressure.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that it's just so I can understand you correctly. You're saying right now that you think it's a projection that people who go on Fresh and Fit, the men in these spaces,
that's the projection. Like when you create this narrative that the women respond back to Myron and Fresh and Fit that he's insecure. He's not.
To the guys who go on Fresh and Fit, to the guys who go on these kinds of podcasts, to the other alpha males. No, I'm talking about the people in the room with them, you know, when on the table, when they're sat together and they have other alpha males in
who give
perspective
Academics.
on how...
Yeah, okay, DJ Academics is insecure. Sure, I'll give you that.
Yeah, so what about the one that was literally on the, I think it was yesterday, who asked a woman to rate him from 1 to 10. She rated him as a 2 and he started calling her a stupid cunt.
Well, that wasn't Fresh and Fit. That was a different podcast. And it's a crap podcast. I think the guy legitimately is there to be mean to women. Like, I know what you're referring to. I think the guy is there to be mean to women. As such, the viewership is reflected. The dislike is reflected. People don't like his content. It is garbage. So the market is showing him that this is trash. No one likes it. It is, you know, like dishwater, Fresh and Fit. So to that extent, we just have to let the market bleed that guy out. Is he insecure? Absolutely. Is that problematic? Of course. Does that mean that we stop with trying to help young men and give them a space to discuss their problems?
No one's trying to stop. No one's trying to stop either one of these things.
I need to get the other questions in because they're paying me money, gang, and I need money. Fairy Queen for $5 asks, ask him. I'm assuming she means Ziku here. Ask him to specifically define what Red Pill means. What are the main tenets of the Red Pill philosophy? Who are the apex representatives?
So the best way that I've always described the Red Pill is, as I said at first, that it is trying to find out how to deal with women from a realistic point of view. As such, the Red Pill is telling young men that it is not being nice, kind, saccharine sweet, writing poems that's going to get women. It may get one woman somewhere for one guy, but it's not a general, you would say, predictable measure of what's going to get you to a lady. If anything, the best way to describe the Red Pill is predictable probability. What are the traits that are going to give you the best probability of having women be attracted to you? And as such, what do we know it is? It is having status, it's having money, and it's being physically attractive. Now, from that offshoot, the black pill or the incel will go a little bit and say, all that other stuff is kind of meh. It's just being attractive. If you get the spark, if you get the woman sexually attracted to you, she kind of might just make up a narrative in her head and just go along with you. You can literally be a neo-Nazi, and if you look like Henry Cavill, she'll go with you. And to a strong extent, that's actually true. Of course, it's not every single woman, but that's the thing. It's probability. So what are the core tenets of it? It's hard to say what it is specifically because it's about awareness and trying to figure out how to deal with it. Men who get this awareness and the fact that, again, trying to be nice and sweet and saccharine isn't what women want, deal with it in different ways. What you see with the high value males, quote unquote, is that they get a whole bunch of status. They go to the gym. They do whatever they do. MGTOWs, they say, I don't want to deal with it at all, and I don't participate. The problem is, it's just the way men respond to it is too different to say, this is the exact way to do it. It's not, unfortunately. I can't give you that.
Okay, I have a question for Chris.
Can I just ask
Sure.
I want to get one clarifying from
Let me ask
Zeus.
my question first, so I have it out there, and then you can ask him if you'd like, right? So, what would you
do it the other way? Yeah. I'm just saying it would be disrespectful as hell to the viewer if you ask me this question. I'm going to ignore it to ask him a clarifier on the last question.
Fair, just ask your question then, quickly.
Yeah, when you say that the tenet of Red Pill is to trying to find out how to deal with women, do you mean that for men interested in being in long-term loving relationships, or do you mean for men who just want to have sex?
I'd say both.
Yeah, okay, that's huge fucking cope. We can go into that in a sec.
Okay, we good on my question now?
Yes. Sorry, fire away.
So, Chris, when it comes to leftist values and the left in general, right? What do you think that are some unique advice that it gives that defines it as a movement? Or do you think there is any, right? Like, just like Ziku was asked what tenets define the Red Pill movement, I'm asking what tenets define leftists dealing with men, right?
I don't know if we'll have a specific, because I wouldn't say that the leftism is equivalent to the red pill in like the analysis, because the leftism would be equivalent to the right? And in the right, you'll have red pill, you'll have 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, you'll have multiple movements. I don't know if you can compare the entirety of the leftism, which isn't a movement heading in just one direction, right? Like there's a lot of deconstruction happening in every aspect of society. When it comes specifically
I
to
find it
dealing with
interesting that
men,
you can do that for the left, but you can't do that for the red pill.
I have no issue with doing that for the right.
All of a sudden,
No, but you've just done it then. You've just equated the left to the red pill again. I can do that for the right, which is when I'd start dividing it into categories. But the purpose of our conversation isn't to do it for the right. It's to do it for the red pill, which is already a category in and of itself. Unlike the leftism. You think that the leftism is a specific category, but the red pill is like this broad social movement?
No, that the right is better for young men than the left. I don't think there's anything from the left that can help young men at all. I'm not surprised that you. Yeah, but I'm not surprised that you think that way, because you clearly do not engage in any of the leftist spaces. That's not true.
That is perfectly fine.
And that's what's beautiful.
No, hold on. You've had one conversation with Hunter.
Not one. I've had several with Hunter, actually. That's number one. Number two, I've gone to Destiny server and argued with some of the people there. I literally, at one point...
And you don't think that they have anything of value for men? Is that what I'm getting here?
Not really. No, they're not really. No, they don't.
Right. So just to be clear, when you have piece of advice that you have agreed earlier, you get from the left as well, which is like the milk toast, hit the gym, work yourself up as an individual, have a good paying job. You don't think that advice is worth anything if it comes from the... No, hold on. You don't think that advice is worth anything if it comes from the left?
No, I think that would just be... I think they would just be getting it from the red pill in the first place.
But that's not what I've asked you.
Ask the question again. Maybe I misunderstood.
You've said that there isn't a single piece of advice that is useful that comes from the left. So I'm asking you, if we have the overlapping advice, sort of your milk toast, self-improvement, hit the gym type of shit, if it comes from the left, are you saying that it's of no use?
No, I'm saying that they are responding to the right in the first place, because they're the ones who started saying it. The left is just adapting to the fact that young men are tired of being told the saccharine sweet nonsense they've been given.
Yeah, because, and that right there, what you've just described is the beauty of the left. We have acknowledged that a massive mistake was made that led people like myself when I was younger into the alt-right and into the red pill in particular. And we are now trying to make amends, taking into account the ever-shifting standards that we have in the society. And the red pill is just fucking coping and huffing their own thoughts in hoping that we can go back to the way that is never going to be the case again.
True. No one has ever...
Hold on. That is exactly what the red pill is saying, and I have actual quotes of that being said by the red pill.
Both of you stop. Okay. An allegation has been made. I want Ziku to answer it. Go ahead.
So you said that the red pill is asking to go back to something. The red pill is never asked to go back to the bloody 50s. I see this meme all the time from a lot of leftists who say the red pill will bring us all back and to this. No, they're not asking for that. Quite ironically, what is even being described that you have described is modern. The idea of the high value male apex open relationship on my side and not hers is modern. I don't even think you can go in history and like ever find that. Like maybe the closest is like polygamy. That's the closest, but it's nonsense. That's not something that is traditional in any way, shape, or form. The red pill is adapting to the modern sphere of how to date and interact with women. So the idea that anyone's asking to go back to the 50s, I haven't seen it. Well, to be fair, I've seen the traditional like housewife girls. Maybe they come and do that on TikTok, but that's more an aesthetic than an honest appeal of going back and hand washing clothes and going back into actually sweeping the floor. They're more still in the life of luxury than a legitimate reform to a lot of this different stuff. So even them who have the aesthetic don't actually want to go back to the 50s. No one just said to go back to the 50s.
I don't know. See what you did there. You've just said this is a meme that I see a lot on the left, and then you've just ascribed an entire position to me. I have said that the red pill is failing to adapt to the new. Yeah, but you're not arguing with the left, are you? You're arguing with me.
I would still disagree.
So hold on. Let me ask you something based on what you have actually said. You've said that the red pill is adapting to the new standard. The new standard that I can prove statistically right now, if you'd like me to, if you'll disagree with me on this, is that women are beginning to out-earn men. Women are out-educating men. There are more women in the workplace than ever before.
Yeah.
And it seems like the societal standard has shifted in such a way that being a sole provider is no longer a feasible option. So if all of those are true and you agree with me that it's true, then can you walk me through how Red Pill is adapting to the new standard when they demonize women who go after their careers and do not focus on children, and they demonize women who make money?
Okay, so put 2 and 2 together, right? If women have a whole bunch of money, but they still want to be provided for by men, what do the men have to do? They have to get more money. There it is. That's the adaptation.
Did you just out of curiosity, because I wonder if you know about this? No, because but what you've just said is I just want to ask you like a very quick clarifier.
It's not to cut me off though.
Yeah, the reason I'm not cutting you off. Look, you've just said that women, by and large, still want men who make more money than they do, as though this is some sort of a gotcha. I have spoken about this a number of times on both Wix panels before and in my own fucking Twitch live. That is true. Women, by and large, are still attracted to men who earn more money. Do you know what is also true?
Who are bigger than them.
That every single time this study is conducted, especially when it comes to income levels, women are more and more happy to date down, economically speaking. With every single year that we pulled this questionnaire, every single year, more women are happy to date down, economically speaking. The reason why that is the case is because women are understanding that if they keep out-earning men, then not everyone can date a man who makes more than they can. When's the last time you've heard the Red Pillers talk about this? When's the last time you've heard the Red Pillers present women as like actual thinking human beings?
I've never heard a woman ever at any point in time say she's starting to be fine with being the provider. So
right, sure, but I'm not. Okay, sorry. Let me clarify, because I'm not asking if you've heard an individual example. I'm talking about studies.
No, I haven't. No, I've never heard that before. I would love to read that study. That sounds like it's totally untrue.
Well, the trend line may be true, but
the trend line, yes, women
the trend
say
line may be true, but it is
down. No, I don't.
Just a fact check here. The latest information that I have on this subject is that, for the most part, a majority of women do want to date at or above their income levels.
That's been consistent throughout the years.
Question from 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 for $5. If Red Pill is promoting open relationships on the man's end, wouldn't that mean that there would be 2 women at least for every man in the world? His question, not mine.
So can you say the question again?
Sure. If Red Pill is promoting open relationship on the man's end, wouldn't that mean that there would be 2 women at least for every man in the world?
Well, if the assumption would be that everyone gets one, then yeah, but yeah. I don't fully. Yeah, I'm not getting there. Also, to be clear, the Red Pill isn't saying like open relationships. The Red Pill is saying one-sided open relationships where I, as a high-value alpha male, get to have 20 girlfriends and you get to fucking cry yourself to sleep in a corner because you're a beta piece of shit. That's the Red Pill. And also, I wanted to ask something, 𝕍s, because you say that women, you agree that women want to date above their income level, and you're saying it like it's the most obvious thing ever. Do you think it's valid for men to want to date young and beautiful women?
Sometimes. It depends on how old they are.
The reason why I'm asking is because men and women tend to go after different things in the sort of dating market. Men tend to go after looks, women tend to go after stability, which is mostly explained by the fact that women get pregnant and they become really fucking vulnerable for a long period of their life.
Here's the thing. That's beautiful if it were true. It's a logical thing that we like to accept and we like to believe. But in practice, that does not seem to be the case. If it is true that women were to generally behave in this manner where they want stability, we would have less single mothers. We wouldn't have more single mothers. We would have less kids being raised in a single parent household without their father instead of more.
No, you're absolutely wrong on this.
Let him finish and then you can respond. Go ahead.
So to me, this is one thing that I think is it makes sense on paper, and it might be how men would operate, I guess, if they were the ones in this position of having to carry children. But when we look in practice in the world, in the dating sphere, women are not picking men selected on base who's stable, who has good character, who's going to stick by me. If it were the case, it would be self-evident. We wouldn't have a red pill movement. It would just be, we would just be fluttering about and living our lives. Instead, what we see is the opposite. We see, as you saw, I remember at the top, you're saying there's a whole disdain for single mothers. Why is that the case? Because a lot of these young men were raised by single mothers, and they lived through the effects of not having their father in their lives, and they can see the effects that it's having on other people. So one reason why they have such disdain for it is because they see this is not how young ladies are operating. They're operating in a much different way. So continue.
Yeah, no, it's dude, everything that you've just said is false. The logical approach that would have less single mothers, yeah, absolutely. The logical approach that would have less single mothers if they cared for stability. The red pill teaches you how to make single mothers. Fresh and Fit, Rich Cooper, Andrew Tate, all of them teach you how to fuck as many women as you can. Red pill is literally teaching you, no, hold on. They are teaching you underhanded tactics to get women to fall for you via lies to allow you to fuck them. Why do you think that the group that is known as Red Pill, why do you think that so many of them came from what was the dating coaches?
You defeated yourself there. You didn't even realize it. If the Red Pill is teaching you this stuff and it works, what's the problem?
The problem is that if it works, if lying to a woman works, and you think that I've defeated myself, but this makes no sense. It's like you've decided that if this works, if I get to fuck a woman via lying to her and it works, it's a fine thing to do because it works. Well, the product of that is literally what you just said. You just said that I have shot myself in the foot because that works.
What I actually said was the real problem here is not the Red Pill teaching this, it's the fact that women accept it.
Okay, so just to be clear, can I get a clarification? You're saying the real problem is not the fact that the Red Pill teaches you to lie.
Both of you stop. Okay. Ask your clarifying question quickly, and then Ziku.
Yeah, so it's a super quick one. You're saying, and this is literally the quote that I've gotten from you, that the problem isn't that the Red Pill teaches men how to lie. The problem is that women fall for these lies.
Bingo.
That has to be the most retarded thing I've heard in a while.
How is it?
Yeah, it's literally moronic. You're literally saying, if I teach you how to lie and it works, it's fine.
Let Ziku explain. Ziku, how do you respond to this? Go ahead.
I shall explain. At no point am I saying that this is fine. I quite literally just said, this is the problem. That means I don't think that it's fine. I don't think that it's good that women accept this unscrupulous behavior from men. But here's the long and short. We erase the Red Pill tomorrow. Boom, gone. No more Andrew Tate, no more Sneeko, no more Fresh and Fit. Do these tactics still work on these young ladies? Yes, because we didn't address why women are selecting men who behave like this. And unless we get there, what's better for young men? To teach them how young ladies are actually operating. They're not operating based on the nice, saccharine, sweet nonsense of writing poetry and being nice. They're operating on all this F-boy behavior. Do I think it's crappy? 100%. Do I participate in it? No, and that's what I'm saying. Unless we start addressing young ladies picking these men, you're upset at the wrong thing.
On that note, $2.20 from Testicle Johnson to say the most erotic part of a woman is the boobies. Fair. I will ask.
Actually, no,
I will. Fair. I'll ask. So you mentioned Ziku. You mentioned this underlying problem of why women are selecting for these things. In your opinion, or the Red Pill's opinion, why do they think these young women are selecting for these things? And what is the solution to get that sea change that, in your mind, right, is the problem?
Okay. So for one, there's multiple different things that work at the same time. So without having a strong father figure in your house from start to finish, there's not a model of masculinity or a model of male behavior that a woman learns to look for when she's trying to date. When that's just absent, a lot of women go for extremes, whether it's the extreme of the, you would say, douchebaggy guy that's there and has money, or the extreme of someone that might be a little abusive, or maybe she and a lot of the black community, they become masculine themselves and now they don't even like men at all. So there's not having your father can create the antagonism of not even wanting men in your life to begin with, or it can create the trauma of wanting to find men in your life that are going to repeat the same behaviors that lack of a father figure had to begin with. So a lot of women end up dating men who are like their fathers, who were Rolling Stones, promiscuous, moving on. So that trauma is one really important thing that's affecting a lot of young ladies that they don't really address until later in their life, if they ever address it at all. Now, we might be funny and call it daddy issues, but they're very important. You know, it might be a funny way to say it, but that trauma is huge and strong in a lot of these women. So now the second issue that we have is a lot of people treat relationships like it's a validation machine. So now that a lot of women don't care about men just as people, the only thing that's left is to use them like their tools, like their trophies. So they're like, okay, well, I need a man that's going to make me feel good about myself. How do I do that? Oh, I got to get the guy that all the girls are going to be jealous for to validate me. So now you have this huge, you would say, what's the word I'm looking for? This huge focus on all of the aesthetic things of men being pretty, men being attractive, men being tall, men having status, all to validate how they feel, not so they can have children in a stable family unit, but just so it makes them look and feel like a good person that actually got something valuable. So a huge chunk of disdain and not treating men like people gets into this space where the women, they want to select men that only validate them, or their trauma makes them select men that are crappy and terrible. So those are two reasons on top of my head. So how do we fix this? One, we need to.
Is there not a third reason? Just out of curiosity, because I'm sorry, I don't know how long you're going to be monologuing for before I'm able to jump in.
Just sit tight, and I'll wrap up with this. So our solutions are going to be as such. One, we have to first address the fact that women are dealing with a lot of trauma that isn't being touched or isn't being talked about, that they have a disdain for men and they're punishing a lot of men for things that they had no control over their father. And two, we need to remove the idea of the validation machine of relationships. Instead of getting into a relationship because it makes you feel good, you need to start getting into a relationship because it's going to create a family. When you start caring about what makes a family, you start selecting differently. So instead of selecting super tall, handsome Bruce Wayne, you're going to pick the nice, stable dude that actually cares about you. So there, now you can respond.
Yeah, the not having a model of masculinity at home that you can use as a role model is made directly worse by what the Red Pill is saying. If women accepted this behavior, broadly speaking, then fuckboys wouldn't be frowned upon, and yet they are. If lying works, then it works. If it produces more single mothers, then it is what it is. It seems to be what you're saying. You're saying that's well, no, that hold on, because that is exactly what you've been saying. You're putting all of the responsibility on women. Unlike my stance, which scrutinizes negative behavior on both sides, you seem to be hyper-focused on the fact that the Red Pill teaches men how to lie, and if lying gets them the pum-pum, then you know what? Maybe we should ask women why they're so easy to be lied to. Like, it has to be, you can't actually hold these opinions in your head and consider yourself anything remotely resembling a good faith actor.
No, that's silly. I'll tell you why. One, on my channel, I constantly talk to young men about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
I'm not talking about your stance. I'm talking about the Red Pill.
That's not fair. I'm a part of the Red Pill. I'm a part of the manosphere. If I'm a part of this umbrella of how we deal with women, then my opinion absolutely has value, and has value to a lot of the people that follow me and talk to me. So that's not fair to say just because I'm not high value 𝕧𝖏𝖏 or Andrew Tate, my opinion doesn't matter. That's not true. That's silly.
The problem isn't with, hold on, the point of me saying, can I just real quick clarify, because what you've just said is completely false.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My problem, I have a question for you as well, Wick, but I'll leave that for later. I'm sorry. My problem isn't with dismissing you because you're not as high value as 𝕧𝖏𝖏. My point is that when a movement is characterized by a number of actors who pull 99% of the numbers of people who are watching them, I don't give a fuck about your single 1% of trying to do really well. The movement being spearheaded by bad actors is a problem that I'm trying to describe to you. And your answer to that always seems to be, well, yeah, they actually are problematic, but I don't do this, which is brilliant. But if I simultaneously told you right now, I acknowledge that the left has a lot of issues, but I don't do any of those things. I just give brilliant advice to men. You wouldn't let that argument fly if you were worth your fucking salt, because that's the dumbest argument to be made.
I actually would if you had the position that I had, but you don't. You actually haven't even laid out how the left is helping young men from start to finish.
I've spoken about the pillars of confidence. Yeah, it's like I can go into much more detail with that if you'd like. It's just the problem that we'll bump into is that as far as people on your side of the fence are concerned, is that if I don't give out a rigid standard that you will compare yourself against, then that is a problem because you need that rigid standard. But simultaneously, you will agree with me that the focus on hypermaterialism is a problem and you should allow for hobbies, for instance, that don't produce money. But then when I describe to you that you could maybe build yourself up as a stronger man based on those hobbies, that is no longer fine because I'm given too much flexibility to what masculinity can mean.
Yes, no, it is problematic, right? Because what the red pill is doing is the opposite of hanging in the air like you've done. It's talking about probabilities. What is the best thing that's going to give you the best edge here? If you're
Yeah, that's
rolling
lying
the
to
die,
women.
what's going to help you?
Okay.
It actually isn't lying to women. I actually don't think that it's fair to say that. My point here, just to clarify, is not to say that you lie to women. In fact, a lot of these men don't need to lie to women if they're just what the woman wants. So let's step into the black pill now. If you're just attractive, if you're just what the woman wants, you don't need to lie to her. You just tell her how it is. You say, look, I just only want to have sex with you. And a lot of women will accept that. They might accept it at first and then regret it later. But
Do you think that's useful advice?
Okay, before we go on too far, I do have some super chats that I need to get to because I got to make money. So women will find me high value, right? $5 for Mudagarl. Only 25% of women grow up without a father. Does that mean that red pill advice only works on the 25% of the women? How do I track the 75%? And this is $10 for Temperance Quill for these two. So how about the red pill teach men not to lie? Be honest with the women they are talking to. Wear a cover without whining like a little kid and not have the expectation that every interaction with a woman is going to end in sex. That not care about body count. That's okay. Carry on.
Mm-hmm. Can you read that first one?
Sure.
You said only
Only 25% of women grow up
Okay,
without a
got
father.
it. I got it. So I guess the first thing we have to say is one, that's 1 in 4. That's humongous amount of people that you're going to be meeting, number one. But number two, like where did you even get this statistic from? Like what's the sample size? Like what's the source? Where is all this coming from? I don't know where we would track
It's
that.
coming from a super chat, my guy.
Exactly. So here's the second thing, right? We still have the problem of the validation machine. If you don't care about men as people, if you're not treating men like they could be the potential father to your children, and they're just there to make you feel good about yourself, then we still have a gigantic problem.
Do you think that's a standard behavior for women, by the way? Do you think it's standard for an average woman to not look at men as like actual human beings?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. I'm starting to understand why you're defending this so vehemently. You're not a part of the red pill. You seem to be part of that group which has like muddled up black pill and red pill into one, and it's like an amorphous blob of everything's out there to fuck me.
Sir, I'm Vegito. I don't know. I'm Gogeta. I'm a fusion.
No, but if you actually think that most women out there in the dating market, don't look at other men like they're humans, then you have bought into everything I describe is fucked up about the red pill. They will take women, invite them on their shows, which they have a vested interest in those women being fucking crazy, because of course they would. That's how you make your money. Those women will then say fucking crazy shit, and the red pill will equate that with this is what an average woman thinks like in the society, which is absolutely not the case.
Let me stop you there.
Can I ask? I have a question now, and you can ask me your question in a second. But Chris,
hi.
Given the fact that it does seem to be that a sizable portion of women do act like this, it might not be a majority. I don't have stats on this, but we all can think of examples of this happening, right?
I got plenty.
Then what would you say is the cause for that if it's different from what 𝕍𝖎 is saying? If what 𝕍𝖎 is saying is not true, what do you think is the cause of this? Or do you think that we're simply being biased by selection bias? We're seeing something that's not really there and that is just false across the board? What do you think?
Well, just to be clear, I don't think the number is anywhere near 50% for how many women look at men as though they're not human beings, which is what would be required, 51% technically, for that to be like the average experience. Even if we look at the 1 in 4 being raised without a father, it takes a special kind of a resentment to look at like the entire second sex, right? Essentially half of humanity as though they're less than. And that entire, and on the other side of this, looking at women as though they're not real humans is taught to you by the red pillars directly every single day when they go on their podcasts.
That's not true.
Of course it is. If you advocate for a one-sided open relationship, which is what all of the spearheading people do, then you do not look at women as though they're equal to you. You keep saying Apex. That's literally what you will get if you Google for red pill advice.
No, it isn't.
Yes, of
You
course
can
it is.
find
Hold
you
on.
can find
You
people like
wouldn't
me, you
let
can find
no, no,
people
no, no,
like
no, no, no.
Sneeko.
This is
Sneeko's not saying
completely
that
full of
anymore.
shit. You wouldn't let me get away with me saying that this is only the far extreme of the feminism movement that looks at men as though they're not
No.
human. In your eyes, it would be an average experience. But when I
It's
claim
based
it's
on
an
the
average
ideology,
experience,
yes.
yes, and the proof that you have for this, just to be super clear, is that you're part of the red pill and you don't think that. Therefore, I'm not correct. But when I would say that I'm part of the left and I don't think that, that wouldn't fly as an argument. And it wouldn't fly for a very good reason, because we don't construct our arguments like that. As I said earlier, every time we talk about something that is an actual issue with the red pill, your vision of it turns into an amorphous blob where every criticism I can have would be either this isn't the actual red pill, or this is just the apex people, or I agree that this is a problem. But then you will proceed to agree with shit that like women don't see men as human. You will agree with the fact that if lying works to women, then fair enough, really, that's a valid strategy. You seem to be espousing everything that I'm saying is an issue.
Thank you for the gift sub, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. Really appreciate you. Okay, 𝕍𝖬, you can respond to this. Go ahead.
So we keep going with this whole lying to women thing. Again, I am not saying that it's fine to lie to women. What I'm saying is we are not addressing why are these lies working on these young ladies. If young ladies are picking the F-boys and the players, why are we not breaking down and addressing why they are selecting for them? I'm not saying that this is
That's literally what we're doing, just to be super clear.
It isn't. And as I've said before, you don't need to lie if you are accepted by her wholesale from start to finish. If you're attractive as it is, and she wants you as it is, you don't need to lie at all. You've already
and you don't think that's you don't think that this deconstruction happens, yes? On the left.
Are you asking that analysis doesn't happen on the left? Are you asking?
Yeah. I'm asking you if you believe that that is some profound knowledge that only the red pillers have unlocked. Why women pick men who are attractive to them.
Oh, that's definitely more right-wing red pill thought process. 100%.
Right. So it's the it's the red pill thought process that women will be attracted to men and will pick them more if they find them physically attractive.
Reverse engineer this stuff, that's more black pill than anything. But to reverse engineer the problem and then adhere to it because it's successful, yeah. If you want to argue that the red pill or some of these guys are real cutthroat in the red pill, then I say, yeah, absolutely. But my thing is, why are we not addressing why are women selecting for these men? You're upset at the fact that men are doing
being
what
addressed.
women want.
That is literally being addressed.
I'm just gonna ask you straight up. Why are you more upset at the men doing what women want than women wanting this stuff?
I'm upset with both sides depending on the precise issue that we will talk about. The issue that we have spoken about, precisely that you seem to have agreed with me on, is that if women are being lied to, and that works, then somehow that's on women. That isn't how we would, no, hold on. That isn't how we would do that. If we wanted to analyze any situation in society across the board, you would never look at the person who got lied to and you'd be like, well, actually, you know what? Even though this person lied to you, that's actually fair enough. It's on you. You shouldn't have gotten lied to.
Maybe I can help. Maybe I can help because we're looping a little bit on this, and I wanna maybe ask, and this is to both of you, right? 𝕍𝖬 first. 𝕍𝖬. When we talk about women wanting men or falling for these lies, can we be more specific? What lies specifically do you think that women are falling for, right? What lies specifically are being told to these women that make them fall for these guys? Can you give us a couple of examples?
I would say that it's more the visual and behavioral lie, as in acting with a bunch of bravado, say like Andrew Tate, talking the loudest, being the loudest in the room, speaking with authority, convincing this woman that he has confidence or competency in anything. Having a bunch of money should not preclude that he's just a great person or that he's actually done anything. He could have just stole all of it. That type of behavioral lie of just having the veneer, you know, again, I'm just going to be handsome, I'm just going to look good, I'm going to wear a suit. It looks like I'm actually someone important, but really I'm just a scammer and I'm just here in the club now because I just scammed, you know, a couple of people.
So specifically in this case, what you're saying, just so I understand, what you're saying is that they present themselves as someone who has status and wealth, but they don't actually have these things.
Yeah, exactly. Or they don't have the character that the woman believes that the man actually has.
So I would
say that
let's start the character thing. On the character thing, what character is being presented by these lies that you think women are being attracted to?
So I would say usually you would hope there's some degree of stability, there's some degree of competency, or there's some degree of confidence. So that confidence comes that he has accomplished something, or he has wealth, he has money for her, or he's a special person in some regard. So it's those type of assumptions that you get from the veneer, the way you look, not really actually investing and talking to the person and
So
learning
is your problem more that they are valuing these things over what they should be valuing, and that's why they're so easily duped? Is that
There you go.
your contention?
Right.
That's,
Oh,
yeah, that's part of it.
no,
Yeah.
this is I appreciate what you did here, Wick. So you're saying that fundamentally the red pill is responding to like the wants of the hyper attractive women.
Not, I wouldn't say hyper, I would say average, and then that
Yeah,
would
so even average women. So if that is the case, that is what the red pill is doing, then by default they will be selecting for the women that are making this be the requirement. But the vast
Average
majority
women.
of women don't care that much for some of the things that the red pill is saying seem to be crucial. Everyone would like to be with a millionaire, just like every woman would like to be with a millionaire guy, just like every guy would like to be with a youthful and attractive woman, but they will settle for an average guy. That's why
Yeah, okay.
average guys
And
all over
that's
the
a
world are
problem
consistently in relationships.
And that's a problem by itself. They will settle for that. They don't want to be with that guy, and they will disrespect that guy. They might divorce that guy because they don't actually feel any
No,
degree
you're completely
or
again, you're
respect for
completely
him.
wrong on this. You
I'm
seem
not
to be
completely wrong.
incredibly black-pilled. No, what
How
you're
many
saying, okay, if I said, hold on, if I said that most men,
about?
if I said that most men want a supermodel levels of attractiveness, but they will settle
wouldn't
for an average-looking woman, do you think that that means that they will mistreat that woman in a relationship?
No. Men are
Okay,
first of
so
all, I
just to
wouldn't
be
even
okay,
say
no,
most
no. So
men
look
want
at what you've just done. No, no, look at literally what you've. I have just asked you.
Okay.
Quick, let me just.
I understand. I'm gonna have the same question. Why do you think that, Siku? So in
ask
one
the
case,
question again.
just as one case, let's I want to delineate this for my audience. In one
Mhm.
case, you said that you don't think that women will disrespect the man that they settle for, that they want the millionaire, but they'll settle for the average, so they'll mistreat them. Whereas in Chris's example, we want the supermodel, we'll settle for the average looking woman, but we won't mistreat them. What is the difference? Why?
I got you. Men are much more easily satisfied than young ladies are. So the supermodel look thing, I can't even say most men want that. I can say most men want a woman they're attracted to, a woman that fits a bar, a woman that is acceptable to look at. I can say that that's fair. But the idea that we're going after Instagram baddies and they're the benchmark, that is just untrue. Very many men
Right,
are
but
very
women are going after the millionaires, right? That's the
absolutely,
benchmark for
yeah.
women.
Yeah, it is. Even if it's
Right.
not
And you
millionaires.
don't see, okay,
No,
so just
no,
to
no,
be,
no, no,
you
no,
don't see the
no, no,
problem
no,
with that
six
level of
figures.
analysis.
Let's be reasonable. It's not millionaires. It's six-figure salary. It's high status. It's blue check mark type of guys. There's a lot of women
Oh,
that are going to be
that's so much more reasonable. Yeah, by all means. I mean,
It
right
is.
now you've only
Ironically,
eliminated
it's not more reasonable.
99.9% of the society instead of
Yes.
99.99. Yeah, it's so much more reasonable now.
Exactly. And there are very many young ladies who become dissatisfied with their husbands. There's more stories that we can find online of a woman saying that a man didn't make the amount of money I wanted him to make. I started to lose respect for him, so I cheated on him. Now, that's obviously a shorthand story of that, but we can find that on Reddit. We can't find very many of the opposite stories. If we found men saying, I cheated on my wife because she was ugly, it'd be downvoted into oblivion. I tell the story of how I cheated on my husband because he didn't make enough money. I'm going to get women defending me in the comments.
It's
night and
annoying.
day
No, hold on. The
it is.
annoying part here is that you keep doing a one-to-one equivalence instead of looking at this through the lens of the fact that men and women want different things in a relationship.
Okay.
Women want stability more than men do because
That's not
men
true.
still by and
Men
large.
first of all, men are the creators of the stability, so it's not even
No, that's
reasonable
not. Hold on,
that
hold
women
on.
want
Just
more. Men
stop for a
created it.
sec because you're already fucking going off the rails. You've said that if a woman tells you a story of how her man doesn't earn enough, so she's left him, that's you see, you can find that everywhere. I mean, there are so many anecdotes it almost composes a study that would be worth looking at. But that's everywhere. But if a man says that he would cheat on his girlfriend or leave his girlfriend because she doesn't earn enough, he'd be downvoted into oblivion.
Not
Sure,
earned. She
but
wasn't
how many?
attractive enough if we're gonna one-to-one it, which I think is an
Yes,
unreasonable.
that is exactly what I'm trying to do. So you're saying that men wouldn't like. You're saying that men don't cheat on women that they don't find attractive with women that they find more attractive in a proportionate amount to women who would go for someone more stable?
Yeah, I would probably say that. Yeah, I would probably wager men don't cheat as often as women do, and they especially don't cheat for that reason.
Right. And do you wonder if maybe the reason why men wouldn't be cheating as much under the red pill ideology and what it pushes for is because men get all the privileges of being in a relationship while still fucking as many women as they can because it's a one-sided, open-ended relationship? Do you think that maybe that's why not as much cheating happens? Because when a man does it, it's not considered cheating. It's considered simply playing into his biology. And when a woman does it, that's when it's cheating because it's bad.
I reject that it's male's biology to want to be promiscuous to begin with. Actually, I think there's more terms.
That's
you
great.
Can use
every single person spearheading the ideology keeps saying that.
I have to. No, I have to, right? Because again, we have more words and more phrases to describe men wanting to be with one woman. We've got men who get stuck in the friend zone. How does that happen if men want to be promiscuous? We have simps who donate thousands of dollars to a woman they never met. How does that happen if men want to be promiscuous? We have the term one-itis, men only trying to be with one woman. Men who get stuck on trying to date one woman. How does that happen if men are supposed to be promiscuous?
Speaking of simps, $5. $5 for 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 girl. I'm sorry, 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙, I respect you. You're not a simp. I promise you. Is to say this in Ziku's world, LOL, why did you get scammed? Is an actual question you would ask a victim of scamming.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I would. Yes, 100%. How am I supposed to collect more information? Hold on. Let me just respond to that. But even more, finish my thought. So what I was saying was that we have more terms to describe young men who want to be with one woman. Okay. We have the apex of men who say that we're promiscuous biologically. What makes no sense, even from the red pill side, I'm going to criticize them, I'm going to criticize you. What makes no sense is to look at the minority of men versus the majority of men. More men are quote unquote simps. More men are friend zone. More men have one-itis, and yet somehow we're supposed to conclude that men are supposed to be promiscuous. It's nonsense. So we can reject the idea offhand based on that alone. Most men do not want to be promiscuous. So even if we have the apex of the red pillars saying that this is the case to be, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, I dismiss it. I don't think that should be a tenet at all. And I think that all evidence would suggest that that's not reasonable. As such, we agree here. That being said, if you want to say, well, we can Google Andrew Tate sensationalism, I'm sorry, I don't control the internet. I don't control Andrew Tate. I don't agree with them.
Do you think that's the criticism here? Do you just to be super clear, do you think my criticism for you is that you have failed to control the ebb and flow of the internet, so we cannot tap into to stop Andrew Tate?
Even if it's not specifically me, you don't like the ideas associated, the mainstream ideas, I say half mainstream ideas of the red pill being Andrew Tate type guys, high value male.
Well, even prior to Andrew Tate, people like Rich Cooper saying that women only wait for you at the finishing line. That's pre-Andrew Tate.
Right? There's a lot of truth to that. A lot of young ladies do wait for you at the finish line.
Right, but he's not saying a lot of he's not saying a lot of young ladies wait for you at the finishing line. He's saying that's what women do.
Okay.
He's saying by and large, an average woman in the society waits for you at the finishing line. Yes, I think that currently in the society, as it is shifting right now, where women are beginning to out-earn men, or rather are already out-earning men, where women out-graduate men, it is no longer the case that they're waiting for you at the finishing line. It seems to me, at least, that a lot of the sort of societal standards that we apply are shifting massively, where as a man for the longest time, if you were a provider, that was all you needed to do in order to reach like that level of masculinity that's desired. And that is no longer the case anymore, because now women have jumped into those roles. So the problem that you have is that women are filling out roles that used to be traditionally male, and that is no longer. No, hold on. You've been monologuing for like 70% of the entire conversation that we've had. I can go off for a little bit. Yeah, I'm sure you think that way. You've said a second ago that it makes no sense to look at minority versus the majority. But the issue I have is that in your outlook, you get to decide what makes up the majority for any given argument, so you can cater it to your needs based on you apparently reading Reddit and online YouTube comments. You've said yourself that you've seen these stories all the time. You can read these stories all the time. You aren't bringing any statistics for me to contend with. You're just saying that because in your worldview, this is obviously happening all the time, then this is simply the truth that we have to take for granted. Well, meanwhile, my worldview where this doesn't happen all the time can get dismissed because I haven't read enough Reddit comments. Is that what you're bringing into this?
No. If you want a clarification, I can give you. Those are examples I was using, hopefully to relate to you, that there is a track record of these experiences from people. See, the problem is...
From Reddit, right? And you don't think there's any selection bias that might be taking place there?
So here's the problem, though, right? You could probably say that that's the case, but I could also say that that would be the case for you selecting any statistics. See, I don't like using statistics. You asked me why. The reason why is because we're always taking a sample size of something, and then we try to construct a perfectly crafted scenario as to why things would be that way based off of a sample size. The problem is I can conduct the same study in a different state and get a different result. So and then another problem with a lot of studies is oftentimes they're self-reported. So we have to trust that the people are telling the truth in the study to begin with. That may not be the case. But
And that's not a problem with the Reddit comments.
and it is. But the best thing that we've got is to look at the people that have lives, people who talk, not just statistics on a screen, not just a questionnaire, but the actual people who are living this stuff. Here's my thing. If something was self-evident, if something was true, if it was general, we would be able to see it more often than we don't. So why is it that more often than not, people can say that their friends grew up in a broken home? Why is that more the trend of what's going on with a lot of people if that isn't happening? You say only 25% of people are the ones who grew up in that environment. Perhaps in that
Well, it was 25% of women, and that was something brought up by a super chat.
Okay, exactly. But the point is, when I'm using these different statistics, they may not accurately reflect reality. So that's why I like to actually talk to the people who lived in reality. I don't know how these studies were conducted, so I can't accept them wholesale just because you read them. I need to see the
No,
methodology.
the problem, I am not expecting you.
Okay. $5.50 from Tuscal Johnson to say, in times of crisis, women often panic and fall into the arms of the nearest man, no matter how stupid and ugly. Your job is to be that man. Thank you for the $5. Carry on.
I think that's more how men will behave. I don't think it should be what men are. As in, most men who love women are going to be that protective person that goes in there. But to say that you have to do that as a man is reducing the sacrifice that is the requirement of being that. And I think that that's really problematic. There's a lot of standards that we just assume men are supposed to do, like women and children off the boat first, so we just let the men stay here and die.
Do you, wait,
Well,
do you
no.
think that...
Wait, are you fine with the deconstruction now?
Stop. I'm curious. Do you think that's something we should uphold societally, women and children first? Or do you think that's bullshit and we need every man for himself?
No, I think we should uphold it, but I think the motivation should be different. The motivation should be men want to protect their families, not that men's lives aren't valuable. I think those are two different things. Men who love their families are going to do that. But if you force men to stay on the boat to die, you're saying, we don't care about you. Goodbye, see you later. That's not helpful to young men's self-esteem. It's not going to motivate them to protect your society at all. If the society is treating them like they don't matter, I don't see in what world young men would want to sacrifice for that. And we've seen several young men say that they don't want to do anything much for society. So
Yeah, and just to be clear, the red pill is not alleviating any of the issues that we have. And I also like how you can pick and choose whenever deconstruction that you perform is something that is in favor of the red pill, and when you can make the argument that all the left does is deconstruct certain factors that go into this, and then it's suddenly a problem. The difference here is that you're on the red pill and you're talking with men's best intent in mind, and nobody who is on the left does that as well.
no, they really don't, because the first mover in feminism is that men have oppressed women. Men in so many different ways are evil and cruel to women, and that women shouldn't even want to be with men from start to finish. If your first mover is that men aren't even important and that they're evil, how could you then go back and say that the left is here to help and support young men?
So let's see if you're consistent in the argument that you're making. The problem with the movement of feminism as it stands currently is because the initial iteration in your mind was against men, sorry. So in that case, if I was to say that a big issue that we have with the red pill currently is that it was made as a sort of resurrection of the whole fucking pickup artistry, and nothing of value can come from it right now, that is literally how the red pill initially came to be. Pickup artistry was getting fucking shit on left and right, and it fucking evolved into what is now known as the red pill. It has evolved since, but I don't have an issue of admitting that it has evolved since, because that is literally what happens to every single movement on every side of the political fence.
No, but that's not the red pill didn't evolve from pickup artistry. It evolved from men once again having problems and experiences with women and trying to figure it out.
Which and do you know which group that sounds kind of similar to what they were going for? Pickup artistry, which was right there before the red pill came to be.
Yeah, okay, so you had the mystery method books, but that wasn't the red pill. That was a pickup artistry book.
No, that was pickup artistry. Pickup artistry was being shit on. Pickup
Okay.
artistry was losing steam. So a
no,
lot of people from the pickup
you're
artistry have changed their movement and created the red pill to go off of that.
That's what's funny. It's beautiful. You're missing a huge chunk. You're in volume 2. I was here from volume 1. So volume 1 is that we had MGTOW. We had a group of men saying, okay, we don't like the way society is treating us. We don't know how to be men. So we're going to become men going our own way. MGTOW technically wasn't even supposed to be pronounced as an acronym. It was supposed to sound silly, and it does, right? We had a group of these men trying to say, okay, how do I be a man? How do I figure this out? And some of these guys say, you know what? I'm going to not have relationships with women. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to find out how to be a better man. That was the first iteration of MGTOW. Then you had some other guys come and they took some tenets of MGTOW, mostly avoid marriage, avoid women, focus on yourself. And that was more MGTOW 2.0. We have that. We also have the forum. Now you do have some overlap with the pickup artistry. You had a bunch of guys who got some of these books, went to these forums, talked about it, discussed notes, tried to figure out what was working. So you're over here in volume 2. You skipped one of the biggest chunks of the start, and you're in volume 2 where you see the PUA hate stuff, where you see the backlash against 𝕼𝖎. You probably saw that on the Dr. Oz show. You probably saw different articles of people banning, maybe, what was the name? Julian Blanc, I believe. Whatever. You probably saw that backlash. And then you're saying from that point forward, this is the red pill now. Well, no, that wasn't the case. You're just seeing the backlash of those particular pickup artists and that element in that chapter in the story. So what we have now is indeed a huge morph. Now we have the high value male. Maybe you could say a little bit inspired from Kevin Samuel's idea of the high value male here at the top and the peak, and everyone else needs to get to the top in order to be that. And as such, I have very many disagreements there. So I do disagree.
Right, but be that as it may, you've just described the process of the volumes and how the movement has shifted, and yet when the volume 3 that we find ourselves at currently, which is where feminists aren't out there to hunt men down, but are rather trying to sort of dismantle a lot of the issues that we face in society with actual care for men in mind, which is something that happens on the left all the time. Right, but I don't particularly care that you disagree.
I want to stop you. I want to stop you right here. Chris, a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think the left cares about men?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Overall?
I think that if I can expand on that a little bit more, I think there was a period of time where left really didn't give a fuck because it was supposed to be the movement for the downtrodden, which men were not by their standards. And the left has shifted massively in that outlook, especially in the recent years, where they have acknowledged that many of the mistakes that were made by excluding men from these spaces entirely was not an appropriate thing to do, because that's what gave rise to people like Andrew Tate doing what they do right now. So there's a huge, huge push on the left in order to be more attractive for men to see as their potential ideology.
Yeah, and I would say that they're going to utterly fail because they're not going to address the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that women pick these men. Women are picking the guys the red pillars are telling dudes to become. Unless you start addressing that, then okay, nice job. You guys finally figured out that you caused this problem to begin with, where you besmirched a lot of young men and treated them like they were garbage from start to finish. I mean, good job. You finally figured out that that was a bad thing.
I mean, that has been addressed.
You actually start talking about how do I get
it has been spoken
girl?
About.
How do I get a wife? How do I get a girlfriend? You're not going to get very far. And you've also burned so many young men from start to finish. You're going to have to do a whole bunch to regain their trust. So let me ask you a question, right? Because apparently you have this similar destiny take of men, whereas in the past, all men had to do was just be a provider, and that was enough. But now men can no longer be providers. Now men have to be something more to be attractive to women. So what I want to know is, what is this something more young men have to be?
Well, generally speaking, I would say that the sort of standards are shifting a lot more into a cooperation in the relationship rather than the rigid assigning of like, this is what you do and this is what I do. So like, what's that? Sorry?
Husband and wife didn't cooperate in the past?
Did you hear what I just said? Or would you like me to repeat myself? We have shifted into a cooperation of sorts where the roles are not so rigidly defined anymore. What that means is that you no longer have the case of men going to work, having their 9 to 5, and in the meantime, the woman taking care of the house and cooking dinner. Nowadays, what tends to happen a lot more in relationships is both of the parties are working and both of the parties are having responsibilities around the house, which is why things that women have been taught historically, like cooking, like cleaning, like being good homemakers, are really fucking crucial to teach to men, because I can't tell you even how many friends I have around my own age who can't cook for shit, who can't clean for shit, and who somehow are wondering why they struggle when it comes to relationships, and they offer money, which is what their partner already does, and they can't do any of those things. When's the last time you've heard the Red Pill talk about these things?
I gotta stop you on that one, right? Because what it sounds like to me is you have a socially retarded person that doesn't understand that he needs to cook and clean, and he doesn't have the wherewithal or empathy to understand the problems there. That is not the issue of the Red Pill. Of course, the Red Pill is not going to address that, because that's absolutely absurd. What you've done is you have assumed that there are plenty of young men whose dating woes is that they're not cleaning themselves, and that their rooms are dirty, and that they don't know how to take a shower. But that's nonsense.
Well, no, the assumption that I have, just to
Problem
clarify, it's not just related to dating, it's related to the overarching worldview.
I need Ziku to finish this point. Ziku? Okay, so you said that the reason that men aren't getting dates now isn't because they can't clean their room or how socially
No,
retarded.
I would say that the
So
problem
what is the problem? That's my question. What do you see is the biggest problem that is keeping men who otherwise want to get with women but cannot? Why? What is the crux of the issue in your opinion?
Well, let's use some Richard Cooper. They're not at the finish line yet. So again, if we've already set up that a lot of women are out earning men and they still want to be taken care of and provided for, they're not trying to build a family with the dude. They're trying to click onto his life after he's already bought the house, after he's already got the job, after he's already finished college. Now, of course, it isn't every woman. Of course, it's not every woman. It's not every human being. Of course not. The long and short of it is the average man, the everyman, is dealing with a lot of this, because the everyman isn't just going to find his high school, college sweetheart. The everyman has to go on Hinge, and he's got to deal with the fact that there's more men that are lonely and not on that app to begin with. He's got to go on Tinder. He's got to go to the
Chris.
bar. He's got to go to the supermarket. He's got to he's got to go seek out a woman. You know, we can even sprinkle in a little bit that just trying to date people in the office now is a little bit of a landmine, because you don't know the rules of engagement when trying to flirt with the woman. You can flirt with her, she doesn't like you, take you up to HR. Now the meat market that used to be, you know, meeting your coworkers, where a lot of our parents met, is deleted. So what we're left with is, honestly, in online dating and at the bar and at a first cold approach in the supermarket on the street, is a visual, you just have to be handsome, you have to be attractive veneer that a lot of young men just aren't going to meet that instant spark. So unless we start addressing that, which I don't think the left is.
Can I just jump real quick with
I
just
have
one
a question
thing?
for you, Chris. So yes, you can.
Yeah, so what Ziku just said perfectly illustrates once again the issue that I have with the Red Pill, and it's a little bit annoying that I keep hearing that like this isn't actually the case. Ziku just said that one of the issues is that these men just aren't at the finishing line yet. So a message to an average guy who seeks love in a relationship is that you aren't worthy of either one of those things unless you're at a finishing line as an individual. And to imply that this is somehow yeah, I'm sure just the women taught him that. It's not the especially to the young men. Yeah, so just to be clear, you're saying that because I don't think you will disagree with this, though I'm curious if you will. Do you acknowledge that a very, very solid chunk of people who consume Red Pill content, particularly people like Andrew Tate, tend to be people in like a very, very sort of early adulthood? So people between like 16 and 18 or 16 and 20, that type of a demographic is incredibly common in the Red Pill spaces. So in your worldview, you've just told me that that demographic, which makes a huge fucking chunk on your audience, and if you don't agree with this, you're coping hard, has been taught by women. They have had so many profound life experiences that they have been taught by women that because they're not at the finishing line, they're not worthy of love.
You don't need so many profounding experiences. You can just be a kid in high school. I mean, I could speak on my own, but you may not like those anecdotal stories, and then I'll get called an incel and all these other nonsensical things if I tell you my story of trying to be kind, be loving, be respectful to women, and they rejected me. They didn't even have a reason half the time. Sometimes the reason I got rejected was because I was a black person. It's just my skin, just the way I looked. Game, set, match. Nothing I can do about that. So I have these experiences. Other young men have these experiences. There's so many men who have these experiences. The question is, when are we going to start addressing the fact that young men are having these experiences with women? Women are the ones saying, I don't want you. You're not good enough. I don't like you. They don't need to be told by Andrew Tate they're not good enough. They're going to women and they're telling them, you're not good enough.
Okay.
When are we going to acknowledge
But
that?
before you respond, Chris, and I want you to respond to that, I'm very curious. Testicle Johnson for $2 says men can't compete because our dicks can't vibrate. Great, thank you for the money. Rayo Flammel says for $5, the fact that the state hasn't given me my state mandated girlfriend is literally 1984 fascism. Shake my head. Pause. On God.
That's a nice
Pause.
fantasy
For
he
real.
tweeted at.
For
Glad
real.
you got money for that.
Okay.
I don't know where you got that from.
Chris. I
Yeah, are you?
I have two
Oh, sorry,
questions.
I thought you wanted me to respond, but
I do have two questions though. One is the second question is please respond to what he said. But the first question, right, is something you said earlier that there's a lot of men who aren't showering, aren't cleaning their room. Do you think that this is that this is a major reason that men can't get women because they are not being able to cook, clean, and take care of themselves? Do you think that's the major drawback for most men?
I think it's a big issue, broadly speaking. I think that the problem specifically that you have is that people who have these issues will flock to the red pill like a motherfucker. And what we've spoken about, what 𝕾𝖍𝖎 just described about being rejected over what he looked like resonates with me quite a lot over someone who was an actual incel back in like my fucking high school days. But if you want to go with anecdotal evidence, the most success I have had in relationships and love life has been when I left a hateful ideology such as Red Pill behind and started deconstructing how much it fucking troubled me and how many issues it caused in my life that for such a long period of time, I was subscribed to an ideology that has literally primed me in every way imaginable to look at women like they're a less than who's out there to fuck me over at every step of the way. And I need to build myself up in every way imaginable, only so that when that inevitably happens, I can just get a hotter and younger girlfriend. Like, leaving that message to young men is such a fucking dismissive problem. It's just so incredibly harmful, and it does nothing to alleviate the issues that they're having. The disappearance of third spaces that 𝕍 spoke about, that's definitely a problem. But that is once again a problem that the left is constantly talking about. This isn't new to anyone in chat who's like even remotely leaning left. We have these conversations on shows like this all the time.
Okay, so when are we going to address the WQ? When are we going to address the woman question? Because what I'm trying to figure out, right? Let's just start from the top. You say, or you imply, that one big issue that young men are having is that they're not grooming, they're not taking care of themselves, they're not cleaning up their rooms. I can tell you, here's an example. Courtney Ryan's entire channel is about grooming. She tells you this all of the time, right? It's annoying to be told that constantly. Here's the thing. If you go to the red pill who's telling you that you need to be an attractive person that is on your grind, on your purpose, you think that they would neglect to tell you that you should clean your room? One of Jordan Peterson's, one of his first most important tenets in general that makes him viral is to clean your room. There's
And why do you think that resonated with so many people?
Hold on. There's so many different things that are telling young men that they need to groom themselves, including in the red pill of getting bigger muscles and getting a nicer place to live in and increase your social status. If this is the case, baked into the message from start to finish, how do you conclude that this is the problem that young men are having?
This is a question from 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 for $5 to 𝕍𝖑, and it is, I think, a good question. Do you think that all men are the first part isn't the best, but I'll read it out. Do you think that all men are perfect and deserving of the right women? Is the
Absolutely
women
not. I'm sorry.
rejecting the man never warranted? Right? So I guess I would ask, right? I'll let you answer that, but I would ask, do you think that every man deserves a partner?
No.
Wait, but can I just
No.
also wick, because like
I
𝕍 asked me a question there by the end, and I don't want it to seem like because there was a super chatter I'm just getting
don't
bailed out,
dodge,
because I would like
don't
to
dodge,
actually
go ahead.
answer. Yeah. Yeah. So you were asking me about Jordan Peterson. If you don't think that it's such an issue that like young men do genuinely struggle with these things, with things like grooming, like knowing how to clean their room, with knowing how to cook properly, with knowing how to take care of themselves, how to fit like appropriate clothing, why do you think that if that isn't the case, then Jordan Peterson advice resonated with such like fucking millions of men, when so much of his advice was literally based on the concept of cleaning your room, which meant both your physical room as well as your mental like faculties?
Well, one is the first mover. What Jordan Peterson is saying is that if you clean up your environment, you clean up your space, it makes your mind feel better and present in where you are. He's not saying this is how you get to a woman. He's saying this is for you. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to get you galvanized to go do something. The problem that I feel actually is that too many people honestly are on the muscle memory of telling young men that they need to do this stuff, not that it's actually the big problem. If it was indeed the actual big problem, it would be one, self-evident. No one would need to be told that. See, this is something that is really silly, right? Somehow men who aren't being picked by women on Tinder are not being picked because their rooms aren't clean, but the women never make it to their room. How does that make any sense? Somehow men who got rejected in high school are being rejected because their rooms aren't clean, but they were in class the whole time. She never saw his room. How are we going to associate something that's not even being addressed or talked about when you're meeting women as a first mover?
Okay, so can I
instead
just
of the actual woman that you're talking to in that moment?
right? The worry that I'm having right now is that I don't feel like it's possible to address the WQ, as you have said, if you were going to sit there and genuinely tell me that you think Jordan Peterson's advice of clean your room referred solely to the physical room that you have.
Well, obviously, even my interpretation wasn't about solely the physical room.
Well, no,
Obviously,
hold on, because it wasn't. But then you
started,
then you were going off about how is it possible that women can reject you if they haven't gotten to your room? So how does that advice apply? When that advice isn't solely about your physical room. It's about building up yourself as a proper person, so to speak, by fixing the immediate problems that you can identify around yourself. Problems that you identify around yourself, by the way, by deconstructing the issues that you have. The deconstruction that you have said that the left constantly does, which it does, which helps you build yourself up as a stronger person around the pillars of competence that I've described earlier.
The only problem is that the left doesn't offer any reconstruction. All they do is deconstruct. If what you're saying is that the left has given us just some basic bare bones advice, here's the question. What happens when I do that and women still don't pick me? What happens? I clean my room, I shaved my hair, I went to the gym, I'm well read, and they still don't pick me. What's going on?
Okay, so two things. First of all, they being the left, I guess I should say we in here, absolutely offer reconstruction of many of these concepts, especially when it comes to masculinity in the recent conversations that we're having, even on Twitch alone. And Twitch isn't even like a fucking spearhead of the leftist movement. And then second of all, the implication itself. Yeah, so the implication is, sure, I'll do that in just a sec. And the implication that because I do not have an answer that immediately solve the issue for every single individual who comes in and says, hey, look, I've hit the gym. No, that is exactly what you're hinting at when you're giving me an individual. You're saying that like, because I don't have an answer immediately to be like, this is what's wrong with you, then somehow my movement is flawed here. But the reality is that if you have done everything that I have told you to, if I have given you pieces of milquetoast advice that I feel comfortable giving, broadly speaking, on a platform, and none of those have helped you, then my best guess is that the issues that you're dealing with are beyond my ability to help, because I don't have the kind of fucking hubris to think that I can solve all the issues of men, broadly speaking, just across the world. It's right, yeah. So what I would say is that one of the ways how you can try tackling that is by going to therapy. Therapy, which is something that the Red Pill is incredibly hostile towards at every step of the way. Of course it is. Do you know how many examples there are of people being dismissed or shit on because they're depressed?
Old Sneeko, yeah, sure. I mean, Andrew Tate says some stupid nonsense about it.
Yeah, sure. Rich Cooper says some stupid nonsense about it. Rollo Tomasi says some stupid fucking nonsense about it.
Yeah. Stop, Chris. Are you saying that the answer to, or one of the answers, or a big answer to this problem is therapy?
I'm saying that if you come to me as an individual, let's say that I am addressing men as a group, right?
Women don't like you, so go to therapy?
No, what I'm saying is that if I have given you a number of advice, right, pieces of advice, and you've told me that you've applied all of those, and none of those do the trick, then I can no longer simply click my fingers and be like, this is literally what will help you. At that point, the issue is something that I am not able to handle. So one of the things I would recommend you do at that point is speak to someone who might be better qualified to help you deconstruct whatever's going on that is causing that issue. One of those people might be a therapist. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that therapy is going to like immediately solve all of your issues.
The people you're trying to date.
But at the very least, leftists aren't going to shit on you for going to therapy.
One of the issues, Chris, is when you say that, right? And this is just for me, right? I'm speaking for me. When you say, well, I can't give you the answer but you should go seek out someone who can actually help fix you with problems. The problem is the left isn't offering anyone who can do that. They're saying, well, we can't help. Whereas the other side, rightly or wrongly, correctly or honestly or deceptively, is saying, well, actually, I can help you. Please come into my parlor, said the spider to the fly, and I will help you as much as you'd like.
and you're completely right on
This
this.
is the biggest issue, right? So I'm guessing I'm
Yeah,
asking
but this.
you.
Sorry, because I think I understand where you're going with this. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this is literally we've spoken about this just in a different lens. Because what you're telling me about right now is absolutely true, and this is what 𝕍 said earlier. If lying works, then it's fair enough. So of course, and this speaks to the broader motivation of making money. If I can lie to you and tell you I will be able to help you, even if nobody else has been, to incentivize you to come over to my channel where I have all the answers you might need, then of course you're going to come to my channel and you're going to listen to my answers because I'm full of shit and lying to you, which happens on the Redpill all the time.
I gotta hit the buzzer on you because this is the problem, right? You keep jumping to this idea that the Redpill is lying to you. Let's just ask some first movers. Does having a good amount of money make you more attractive?
Yeah, of course.
Does being physically fit make you more attractive?
Yeah, by all means.
Does being a popular person make you more attractive?
Yeah, status correlates with attractiveness, of course.
Where is the lie?
The lie is in saying that all of those things are necessary to have a fruitful relationship, which is literally what's being said by everyone spearheading the movement, which you will respond to with saying that, like, but this isn't what you're saying, or this isn't what the people you agree on the Redpill side that are saying, but that doesn't matter because the most popular voices in the space are saying exactly that.
Okay, so it's as I have described before. The best that the Redpill can do is give you strong probabilities. The strongest probability that you will be generally attractive to women, because obviously you're right, you can't say every individual person, but generally what we just laid out, what we just did in real time was, if you get those 3 tenets, you look more physically attractive, you get more social status, you get more money, generally you're going to be an attractive person to women. Here's my question, right? Because I remember you went down this rabbit hole where you had such a disdain, as I do actually, of the Richard Coopers, the Fresh and Fit, the Andrew Tates, and all of that. Why didn't you have the strength of mind to say, okay, I don't want to be a promiscuous man. I want to be with a woman. Why did you go down the rabbit hole to this depression or go down to the black pill instead of stopping and saying, no, that's wrong. I don't want to be a part of that. Why aren't you like me, so to speak?
Hold on. Can you ask me that question again?
Why did you go down the deep rabbit hole of the black pill, so to speak, or the materialism of the red pill, instead of stopping and saying, I don't like those aspects, but everything else is correct?
We have spoken so far for what we're coming up on 2 hours now, where I have made it abundantly clear that the milquetoast advice that focuses on building yourself up as an individual, hitting the gym, and getting a decent job is something that is ever present on the left. The reason why I've jumped, quote unquote, into the rabbit hole of the more extreme sides of Red Pill is because what I'm proposing is that this isn't a more extreme side of Red Pill. This is the mainstream narrative that you will stumble upon the first 10 minutes of research you do into any Red Pill related topics. People like Rich Cooper saying that women will only wait for you at the finishing line. Anthony Dream Johnson happily fucking abandoning whatever chivalry is supposed to mean and harassing any of the partners of any of the men in the manosphere he deems to be in an incorrect relationship. Fresh and Fit saying that there is no such thing as a high-value woman because the woman's value always depends on the man that she's with. Coach Redpill being arrested for spreading pro-Russia propaganda, which isn't really relevant, but I like mentioning it whenever I can. Or people like Andrew Tate saying that you cannot live in reality and not be sexist. That isn't a deep rabbit hole. That is entry-level research. That is what you will find when you Google for Red Pill.
Okay, but you're not addressing the question. Why don't you remove yourself from that stuff and maintain the truth and effectiveness of what's being told? Because you're still not addressing the reality of the situation, and that is, generally speaking, focusing on these traits or just being a handsome man, if you want to go more black pill, will get women to like you. You're not addressing that.
Well, there's 2 reasons why. Okay, there's 2 reasons to that. There's sort of two parts to this.
Okay, but before we get into that, Ziku, name one positive, high-profile Red Pill role model.
Nico.
Nico. Okay, there you go. Okay, carry on. Ask your question. But I want to let everyone know, right? We're coming to the end of this. Okay, we're going to get to closings here soon. Whether or not I open this up depends on you, gang. If you donate, if you give me some subs, if you give me some bits and some super chats, I will open this up and you can come on the show and question these two individuals, these two strapping young lads yourself.
They'll probably question me more
right?
than anyone.
So we're gonna get there. So I'm just saying, if you like the content, if you're enjoying what's happening, and you want more of this, you gotta give me money. Okay, carry on. Ask your question, please.
I was going to answer what 𝕍𝖎 said about why don't I just remove myself from this stuff. First of all, the left, myself included in this, consistently removes themselves from the negative aspects of Red Pill and gives advice based on the parts that make sense with elements from our own ideology that we believe to be correct. And second of all, the reason why I'm not going to do this thing where I'm just going to sit here and be like, well, have you tried being attractive or have you tried being born with nicer hair, is because that's a dumbest thing to do. What sort of an advice is that where someone rocks into my chat being like, I struggle to date women, and I'm just going to tell them, well, have you tried being born prettier than you are?
Well, your advice is to tell them to go to a therapist. That has nothing to do with
my advice is to build themselves up around pillars of competence that I've described earlier that come as a result of deconstructing the issues that you have whilst reconstructing the points of competence that you believe in.
So let's go through that. So what are they?
Yeah, so I will use myself as an example because I feel like this might be most appropriate so that you can sort of like pick at this if you'd like. So I have gotten to this point by building myself around these pillars rather than focusing on the negativity in my life, a lot of the negativity being the focus of that, like women are the problem here. So physical appearance is tremendously important for my vision of masculinity. So I go to the gym, I exercise, I keep myself clean, and I choose clothes that fit me. I'm not at where I'd like to be yet, but I'm closer to that point than ever before in my life, and I will be closer to that point still tomorrow. Another pillar of competence for me personally is my career. I have a good 9-to-5 that puts food on the table and lets me save up a little bit of money for other expenses at the end of every single month. And despite the fact that I am actually massively out-earned by my significant other, I am still satisfied knowing that the longer I work at the company I'm at for right now, the better my career will be. The way I've constructed these things, and there's more pillars of competence if you're fine with me going into those, but ever since I started approaching life in this manner, ever since I started moving away from the red pill and moving away from the manosphere and looking into which struggles I have and rebuilding them with sort of the leftist ideals in mind, I have seen nothing but success in my everyday life regarding relationships, regarding the things that I have struggled with when I was on the red pill, and regarding the things that I still struggle so many red pillars, that I still see so many red pillars struggle with.
Okay, to you, Chris Speaks. Name 3 positive left role models for men on the left. So 3 positive role models for men on the left.
Yeah, sure. I would say Abba and Preach, Destiny, Hunter Avalone.
Yeah, I knew it. I could have told you.
Okay. I mean, he answered the question. Okay, gang. So here's what's gonna do. We did reach the level 1 hype train. I would love to reach a level 2. We got some great super chats. Thanks to 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, thanks to Fairy Queen. Appreciate Snixels. Portland is burning. All the people who are giving me money. Carry on. Keep doing that. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna go into closing statements. And after these young men are done giving their closing statements and telling people where they can find them, what we're gonna do is we're gonna open it up, and I'm gonna bring on people 1 to 2 at a time to ask these individuals questions, and we'll go from there. Is that cool? Everyone good with that? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you again for the donation, Portland is burning, for 450 bits. Really appreciate you. Okay, closing statements. We'll start in the same order the reverse order of what we started. We're gonna start with 𝕍𝖎 here, and then we're gonna get to
No, it should be him first.
That will be that would have been the same order because 𝕍𝖎 went first on the openings.
I'll reverse it.
It's okay. It's the age that's getting to you. It's all right.
It is. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've all been there before. Closing then introduction then closing. Do we have any rules on that shit? Or
do what your heart desires, buddy.
I'll go with the closing, and then I will speak a little bit about myself, I guess. So I would say that Zeus in this debate wasn't very, at least in my eyes, seemed not to be able to deal with the fact that the Red Pill has evolved over time. And while your beliefs are degrees better than the Red Pill heroes of today, your rejection of data and studies keeps you trapped in this very outdated way of thinking that still does massive damage to men on every conceivable level, insofar as we believe they're humans. I do genuinely hope that we have the opportunity to talk more in the future in like sort of a one-to-one format. And at the very least, we'll be able to understand each other a little bit better outside of like the trappings of the debate. And yeah, my name is Chris Speaks. It's spelled K-R-Y-S. I am mostly on Twitch. I talk about relationships, life, sex life, just a lot of all the fun stuff, whilst usually having video games in the background. So hop on in, say hi, and I'm sure we'll have fun.
Well, yeah, go check him out, gang. He's great. I appreciate you coming here and I appreciate you being willing to engage with this. And also, Ziku, in your closing statement, I've been paid to ask you to name 2 more positive role models on the right for men's issues. There you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll
Floor is yours.
answer the question first and I'll close. Myself and 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. Okay. Maybe not myself. I guess off the top of my head. It's tough. I'm sure if I looked on my YouTube recommended feed, I'll find some other people I respect. But I really respect 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. He's been a great role model to me for a huge chunk of my life. Actually, I remember him back when he was doing his lean muscle hybrid thing, which is probably nonsense, but you know I appreciate him. I think he's great. But I guess I would include myself. You know, so. I like me, myself, and I. But so let's get to the closing thoughts then, right? So the thing that I find rather interesting is when we looked at the pillars of thoughts, the pillars of competence. It's that it's nothing new. It's nothing different. As such, he said. You know, he said he takes care of his physical appearance, and now he has a career and he works a 9 to 5. That's well and that's great, but as such, you haven't even rejected the red pill as much as you've rejected the apex. You've rejected people that have an ideology that you don't like, you don't respect. And as such, I agree. I reject them too. The only problem is at the end of the day, what is effective? What helps you become more attractive to women? It's those 3 tenets. What you do with that upon that point is all up to you. And I think that that's something that I failed to address, is that there is some degree of freedom, there is some degree of will that you have to express on what you do after you become attractive to women. But the long and short of it is, we haven't actually seen what the left wing has for young men. As I've shown a lot of the different time, we deconstruct young men. We say that they're terrible and we say that they're bad. But it's only over here on the right, it's only over here on the red pill, do we give them something to aspire to. And the thing is, even if you don't like the ideal to be aspired to, even if you don't like Andrew Tate, there's a conversation to be had. There's a villain to defeat. There's an ideal of heroism to be created and not being like Andrew Tate. There is none of that on the left. There's none of that with the leftists. There is no model at all. It's just up in the air. It's just do what tastes right, do what feels right. As such, young men are confused. Young men were taught by feminists. They were taught by the left that they were the oppressors. They were the ones who did something wrong. There's something wrong with their existence as a male. And it's not just that they're taught that by feminism. They go out and they try to date women and they get flaked on. They go out and they try to date women. They get rejected constantly. They go on Hinge and they don't get a single match. They get told over and over and over again, there's something wrong with you. You didn't clean up your room. You didn't work out enough. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. And there's even some of that on the red pill side. Young men are constantly beaten down over and over and over again. But there's no real ideal of heroism of what to aspire to be on the left. Andrew Tate has given them something. Sneeko has given them something. I've given them something. But the left, they have nothing but deconstruction and deconstruction. And I think that when we ask, what are we supposed to do as young men, we see from the left, they have no answer. So those are my closing thoughts. If you want to find me, you can find me at 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. That's BASSFZZ. I've been on YouTube for a while. Twitter is the same. So
check them out, gang. Thank you for being here. Thank you both for coming. Audience, if you'd like to talk to these two, hit that Discord link I've given in chat, !Discord, click the link, accept the rules, and jump backstage. It's at the top of the line here. And then we'll take a few callers till we get tired of taking callers. So yeah, come on in.
Oh, Wick, right as we jump into that, this is what I wanted to ask you earlier. Have you considered doing like 10 or 15 minutes for super chats in like short bursts rather than just like interjecting them every single time we're starting to get on the roll?
I've thought about different ways to do it, right? The problem with that is sometimes the super chats become irrelevant, right? They're super chatting specifically to ask you a
Could
question.
make him pay you again.
Right?
No, I like it. I'm not gonna lie. I think it offers different avenues for discussion. Maybe we can segue them a little bit better, but overall, like if they're asking a good question, they make a good comment. I think so. Like one person asked, is there ever a time where a woman should reject a man? Or do I think all men are worthy of relationships? Absolutely not. That's not at all what I've ever said. In fact, again, you guys aren't familiar with my content. I regularly talk about all of the young men women should not be with. There's plenty of deadbeat dads. There's plenty of drug dealers. There's plenty of abusive guys. I think the F boys that they do select are men they shouldn't be with. So do I think women should reject men? Absolutely. I just think that the men that they choose to reject are oftentimes men that might actually treat them well.
Yeah, and just in fairness, right as we jump into someone asking the question, it's you hear people on the left, even like people like Destiny spring to mind first as well. Like how many times has he spoken about like the women that are being ridiculous in their standards and how they need to grow up a little bit and assume that maybe because they're out earning men now they have to settle for lower income guys. Like this is something that we do on the left as well. This isn't something by any means that
Destiny's the only one.
any tangible.
He's based in that point, but there's still problems with even what Destiny is saying. When Destiny he gets to the first point where he's like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But what's the prescription he gives to young men? He tells them you have to do something more. You have to be the one who
yeah,
cooks.
But do you?
You have to be.
Without,
that's not what women want.
Okay.
Yeah, without jumping into.
I gotta take a bio break real quick, but good luck.
Yeah, sorry. I will. Fuck. I want to both let the 𝕍𝖎. Yeah, I will. Sorry, I will just once Wick is back, we can like it will be probably more structured if we start like having the audience ask questions. Then the problem is that like you're saying, 𝕍𝖎, that the issue there is that you're saying you have to do something about it, and you are still the person who has the control and not the women. But like you do understand, you know this, and I know that you know this. We can't just click our fingers and make the women in society act in the best way with the best interest of men at heart, just how we can't make men do it. The reason why the advice so often boils down to personal responsibility is because there's a limited amount of factors that you can affect in your personal purview. I, as a person who keeps getting rejected, can't just make all women accept me, but there are going to be some tangible steps I can take in order to reduce that rate of rejection. That's why the advice always ends up boiling down to taking personal responsibility. And this is something that the left does as well.
Here's the problem, and I find it really ironic. You say that, and that would be great if the left was consistent. I can give you a good example off the top of my head. I was just making a video response to 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘, where she said men need to figure out who in their friend groups are the guys that are going to be really pushy and more or less try to beg and badger and kind of get women to have sex with them after they've said no several different times. That men have to find the dudes in their friend group in some type of witch hunt as such, who those guys are. So the left is prescribing that men have to do something else for the benefit of not other men, but actually for women. So we can put pressure on men to do something more for women easily. She didn't even think about the logistics of having that witch hunt for young men to figure out who in their friend group is the actual rapist. She didn't even think about how that sounded ludicrous. It's easy for the left to say young men need to do something to protect women. But then when I
sympathize with that
about young men being rejected constantly, then all of a sudden it's like, no, young men, you guys need to figure that out.
No, but hold on. I sympathize with that. I sympathize with that a ton, and this would be nonsense, and this would be hypocritical if it was true. I've spoken with Erudite before. Yeah, and I specifically want to talk about the example. I have heard Erudite talk about the responsibility that women have in these spaces as well. The responsibility that women have and the avenues in which women need to do better. There are TikToks of Erudite talking about this over and over again. This isn't something new.
I'll give you that. If she's done it, I'll give you that. But I will say that wasn't a good example. But I will say mostly the left, they have no issue telling young men that they need to change and evolve and be different from women, but there's never a lick of anything. I guess I give you an example, the Gillette Fusion commercial that a lot of people got upset with, which I think that they overreacted a little bit, but the fact remains that there's a prescription that young men need to stop approaching women. Young men need to stop saying boys will be
it was a
boys,
ridiculous.
and
Yeah, it was the whole thing was fucking
prescription.
wild. Yeah.
So exactly. So again, as you can
Yeah,
see,
but that
just
wasn't
from
the
top down,
left. That was
but
rainbow
it was.
capitalism at
It was
work. Like
rainbow capitalism is influenced by the left. Who are they trying to appeal
Of
to?
course,
Like, come
yes.
on, like
But
put two
how
and two
many
together.
leftists? Do you know how many leftists I have seen heavily criticize Gillette for that ad for being completely fucking tone deaf and ridiculous?
And it's perfect, and it's beautiful, and it's a good thing that you've got leftists doing that. But the fact remains, the first mover to even create that commercial was for leftist people. So they have to do something to reclaim the narrative because, again, what's baked in leftism is that men are not good people. Men need to do something different. Men are bad the way they are. And
if you think... If I can ask you a question, if alternative media was to make an advert that they have catered around the advice that Andrew Tate gives on how you can get a really good-looking bride from a different country and you can move her over to a place where she has no agency so she can do a cam work for you, and they've presented that for the right because the right currently resonates with Andrew Tate, do you think it would be appropriate for me to blame the right for that commercial?
A little bit if they produced it, yeah. That's crappy. You shouldn't be giving any money into Andrew Tate. And actually, most people on the right don't actually respect Andrew Tate. Well, you've got Candace Owens saying some silly shit sometimes, but you know.
Well, it's just that the broader trend is that like most people who respect Andrew Tate fall on the right. That absolutely seems to be the case. It's not that the right respects Andrew Tate; it's that people who respect Andrew Tate are on the right.
They're just more apolitical. Maybe I guess maybe they would lean a little bit more, but
I mean, I don't think it would be a little bit.
They'll say Andrew Tate might have something right to say here, but then they go, "Oh wait, no, that's just crazy. I'm not with him." So Andrew Tate seems to be his own guy, and he is kind of nasty.
First of all, 𝕍𝖎, did you get your question answered? I wasn't here for it, so I'm not sure.
I did not.
Okay.
I barely spoke.
Okay. Well, you're here. Let's showcase you a little bit. What do you have for these guys? Ask your question.
All right, I have two questions, one for both of them, and then one specifically for 𝕍𝖎. Which order should I go? I guess I'll ask the general question first. So both of you have acknowledged that on some level, either society or the left has made men feel alienated, isolated, disenfranchised, or one of those synonyms. What would be some steps that we as a society, not on an individual level, but on a societal level, can take to help the sort of alienation that men feel?
I think the first thing is you have to acknowledge why they feel that way and how they got here. And honestly, this might sound, as some might say, cringe or cringy, but they need to apologize to young men. They need to apologize that feminism told them from the time that they were children that there was something wrong with them. They need to apologize to young women for giving them this idea and paralyzing them with this thought that men are going to be potential rapists, or that there's a rape culture going on here, that young men in their nature just want to hurt them. There needs to be a full-on, we are sorry. We put that message out there for you guys. We apologize for saying that you guys were all terrible people and that you guys aren't good. And we're sorry for ignoring your problems. And now we're going to work towards trying to actually help you get there. That's what they need to do, because as it stands, as long as they start moving on the first mover, that men need to do something, that men are the problem, that men did something wrong for existing, there really can't help, honestly. The best they can do is trail behind the red pill and just say the things they're saying.
So just on that, like, I think that is covered under sort of acknowledgement. So once you acknowledge it, then you apologize or don't apologize. Like, I personally don't care. It might help, but what are some sort of positive steps that you think society can take to help, like, in more tangible outcomes? What are some steps society can take to help men?
I think that when it comes to rejecting homeless shelters for men only, we just stop that. We actually create spaces for these young men who are on the streets. We kind of get them out of there. We give some more male scholarships to dudes. It shouldn't just be you only succeeded in sports, so here's your scholarships. But we can actually give them a little bit more, some more grants. We can speak more positively about men, about why they're important. You can just be just frank, make commercials. I remember there were some old commercials, the pass it on, the compassion, from the Foundation for a Better Life, that old thing. Just literally just put good messages and good portrayals of young men out there and speak positively about men. Give them actual ways to move through society and give them a role and a reason why they should be in a family unit as well.
Okay, and Chris?
I'm gonna completely disagree with the they need to apologize. I think that while the message of leftists can get wild at times, it's nowhere near the level that 𝕍𝖎 describes. And so much of why people feel so slighted, why they might feel like they need an apology, is because it's in the interest of people in the red pill to take the most extreme examples of feminism and paint the whole movement with a broad brush to pretend like that is actually the case, and take this as something that comes from someone who's both former alt-right and an incel. What we could do is stop dismissing mental health issues. We could teach men and women that relationships are a mutual struggle where both parties need to make concessions and both parties need to put in a ton of effort. We should probably stop glorifying promiscuity culture, I think, and what would definitely be nice is if we had more people on the left lifting.
Okay.
And
Did you have
I
anything
had
else
one.
before we move on? Yeah.
Yeah, I had one question for 𝕍𝖎. So you might have answered the 𝕍𝖎 before. So, if you feel like you're repeating yourself, then I'm sorry, and you don't have to answer. But you said that when, you gave the example that Destiny gives some advice to men and never gives any advice to women. Is that like a sort of fair summation of what you said just like a few minutes ago?
No, I don't think I said he never gives advice to women, as much as I said he acknowledges that there's a problem of unreasonable expectations of men from women, but his solution is that men need to take different roles in their relationship, such as cleaning, or men need to be more emotional. I wish I could go and find his exact quote,
No,
but
but
I'll
I think
probably
what you said,
text him.
that you said something to the effect of that all these advice is usually just telling men what to do.
Yeah,
So
for the most part.
my question is, if men are the people watching the content, then how can he tell women what to do?
The problem is, well, actually, it's Destiny, so there are plenty of women who watch his content. I think that's probably a bad example. You wanted to use maybe like Sneeko or like Fresh and Fit, but Destiny, he's got a huge female
I mean,
fan
I
base. They
think it's
listen to
still
him.
I would say a large percentage of it would still be men, but okay,
Probably, but a large percent of it is also going to be female. Like he can definitely talk to young ladies. It's definitely.
so if you had an audience of women, what advice would you give them?
The first thing I would probably have to say is, you need to be intentful in your relationship with men. What's the purpose of having one around? If it's, because you want validation, then you just need to not engage at all. If you don't want children with the man, then you should just not engage at all. Unless you intend on trying to be in a family with them, if that's the goal, that needs to be at the forefront of your mind. What are the traits that are going to make a good father to my children? What are the traits that are going to make a good husband to me? And then when you find those traits, which is going to be patience, there's going to be a lot of compassion, it's going to be someone who's a problem solver, someone who's going to be trying to figure out what issues are, and you're going to want someone that's going to be compassionate and selfless more than he's going to be selfish. And there's other things we can add to the list, but the long and short of it is, you need to be intentful into what you want in a relationship with a man. Why is it important to be with said man? Is to create a family? That's what you need to be focusing on. Because if not, if you're just trying to be promiscuous, which me and Chris agree, promiscuity culture, it honestly needs to be taken out to the back and shot in the head 15 times.
Yeah. Or at least just
people are
stop. I
if
think I would
unless we
sorry,
get
go on.
more monogamous, I'll wrap up. We need to be a little bit more monogamous and a lot more intentful is one of the first things I would say to young ladies.
Yeah, I would just say on the promiscuity culture bit, I would like for people to stop pretending like there are absolutely no consequences in both physical or mental from just fucking around as much as you can. That's the bit that annoys me. If you want to fuck around, by all means, just do it knowing that there are consequences to doing these kinds of things. It's one of the beautiful things about living in a free country is that if you want to fucking have KFC every single day and die in 10 years, you get to do that. By all means, knock yourself out. Just understand the consequences.
Okay. Thank you, 𝕍𝖎, for your questions. And
I did have a follow-up based on the
quickly,
𝕍𝖎's
we
response.
gotta make room.
Okay, just real quick. So, 𝕍𝖎, okay, you said that women probably should only date men that they see husband or whom within whom they see husband material, father material, things like that. But how do you expect women to know what is a good father or husband material without them dating like sort of from a pool of men?
Can women read
Can
books? Can women talk to their mothers who apparently had fathers? Can women not talk to their friends who are married and
do
successful?
you think that
And
all
are
men
we gonna
know
pretend?
from the off what would be a good mother? Who would be a good mother? Do you think all men know from right from the off who would be a good mother, who would be a good wife? But then women
No,
can feel
but
it.
that's why so men can also talk to successful people. Men can also read books. They can watch podcasts. They can talk to their friends who are in relationships. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have to date 15 people to figure out what works. What works is going to work consistently. You're not gonna reinvent the wheel when it comes to dating. You don't need to have sex or have 15 relationships with someone to finally say, "Oh, now I understand it." Why don't you go talk to the people that have been together for 15 years, don't argue too often, they compromise, they love being around each other, talk to them. What worked for them? And then guess what you can do? Talk to someone else that was successful. Compare notes. Literally, we do this with studies all the time. Let's compare notes. Okay, so this person was successful here. These traits are consistent. Write a Venn diagram. Like, let's not pretend that the only way to figure out who's going to be a good husband, a good father, is by having sex with a whole bunch of guys. That's not reasonable. It's not.
Okay.
Zephyr, thank you for being
Yep.
here. I
All right.
appreciate you,
Thank you
buddy.
guys.
Just on the tail end, I would just add to that, since we're waiting for the whilst you pull the next person in, that this really it's one of the things that absolutely goes both ways, and it's fucking weird that both sides of the fence are so delusional when it comes to this, because the red pill idea that you do need to fuck around in order to figure out who's capable of being a mother is super fucking bizarre. That comes from Fresh and Fit. It's I just don't understand the connection that they're making.
Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah.
Okay. Pulsars, floor is yours, buddy.
Hey guys. Hey, I missed a good part of this, so forgive me if I didn't get all the context here. Just be a little charitable with me. So I'm going to speak a little bit broadly here. I think one really big issue with the red pill, and I think this is a little ironic too, is how heavily it focuses upon women, right? That's not even to get into the issues with their ideology around women, but it's just so fixated. And this idea that there's that the red pill is this based masculine thing when you're obsessed with the opinions of other people, it's absurd. If we want to really help men, we need to be teaching men to invest in themselves, not contingent upon whether or not they can get a female to like them. And there are universally good things that we can do, such as saying, hey, discipline is a really good thing to have, and that's not just to develop skills, but it's to be able to regulate your emotions, right? Telling people to go lift in the gym, that's fine and well. That's a physical thing. It's good to be physically fit. I'm a big proponent of that. But being physically fit, even if you get the woman, doesn't teach you how to navigate a relationship with that woman in a healthy way. It doesn't teach you 20 years down the road to navigate a marriage with that woman and navigate a family with children, where you are going to have to learn to be self-sacrificing and not the incredibly selfish person that the entire red pill message is built around. Otherwise, you're endangering yourself, your family, your partner, your children with every bit of the lifestyle that ideology is teaching these men to build. And we can point to a few specific things with this too. We can point to the fact that they are so stuck on what women choose and how they choose it, as if women, by the way, are a monolith. And they are really fixated on that. So it's okay, go out, be a high earner, right? Be a high earner, lift in the gym, and women aren't going to choose you if you're not alpha. None of those things have taught you to have a healthy family life. Not one.
Well, I will let Zeke take most of the time, because I understand this was targeted at him. But you do have to keep in mind that red pillars can't teach you how to navigate a 20-year a relationship 20 years down the road, because vast majority of them ain't got one to show for it. How the fuck would they know?
I
They
think you're
haven't lived
exactly
that
right.
long to begin with either.
Well, what would
But
your
I
response
mean,
be here, Zeke?
well, actually, I think again, people pretend that we need to reinvent the wheel. We really don't. Talk to the older generation of people that are still together. Why did it work for them? Why is it successful for them? I don't understand why you would need to be in a 20-year relationship when you can talk to other people who have been in 20-year relationships. Something is true independent of its
Oh,
source.
don't
Um,
misunderstand me though. I'm not saying people need to be in a 20-year relationship. I'm saying 20 years down the road when you have a family, you are going to have relationships. And that relationship might be with your child, that relationship might be in your marriage. That I mean, it could be any number of things. It could be with your next marriage. But there are ingredients to finding happiness that require a level of consistency. You have to consistently be a good person with integrity. And I don't hear a lot of discussion in the red pill space about being a
you,
man of
you gotta
integrity.
you gotta
It
subscribe to
doesn't
my
come up
channel.
that often.
You gotta
I
subscribe to my channel. It comes up almost in every video I bring up.
but I mean, but you also
No
sat
offense,
here
but
and said that
I'm
the
that
left
guy.
needs to apologize to men
Oh,
to help
absolutely it
them.
does.
So
Andrew Dworkin
do these
said,
men need a
Women
go
need
ahead.
men like a fish needs a bicycle. Call me salty as much as you want, but in what world does it make sense to train young women that they don't need the other half of their species?
So let's back up a second. You were specifically asked a moment ago what we can do to help these men, what the left should do.
Yeah.
And instead of having a conversation, you're telling me to subscribe to your channel because it's all you talk about. Instead of saying the left needs to be preaching about how to teach men to act with integrity and be men of character, your answer was the left needs to apologize to
First
men.
thing,
Do you understand how absurd that is on the like
no.
the hierarchy of priorities?
No, no, not at all. I think that's the problem by itself. The fact that you think that it was okay to create an ideology that demonized men for the last 50 odd years is nonsensical to me. The fact that you think it's okay that these young men walk around with this fucking black cloud over their head that there was something wrong with them since the time they were born is nonsense to me. It is unreasonable that feminism as an ideology can say the things they say about these young men and treat them like they are devils incarnate. It is nonsense. So of course, yes, you could say that it's cringe or cringy or whatever, but the first thing that the feminist and left wing needs to do is acknowledge they created this headspace that these young men are in where they need to figure out how to be men, how to be loved, how to be some high value male. You guys took that away from them.
I want to try to be charitable with you
Before
here and build a
before
bridge.
before
Yeah,
that,
go ahead,
Ice
Wick.
Beans paid me some money to say the older generation have a lifetime of conditioning that tells them that they have to stick together for religious, kids, cultural reasons, regardless of how happy the marriage is. Source: my Catholic South Asian parents. Thank you for the
I
money, Ice Beans.
I
Carry on.
think, Ziku, what you mean when you say this is that the left needs to work on having some empathy for these men and finding a way to embrace them in a way that's not exclusionary and further marginalizes. I think that's like the core of your message,
I'll clear
but
it up.
that's not really done by like apologizing to them. And I think what you're doing is you're taking like the extremist views of like the extreme left and
No,
prescribing it to the entire left.
no.
And I would also point out that it is not like putting a gray cloud over men to admit that in male culture in the West, there are parts of it that have been and continue to be problematic and damaging to both men and the people in those men's lives, right? And we can talk about those problems and work on fixing them without saying like all men are bad or all men are rapists or anything like that, right? We can admit that men tend to be more aggressive, right? Men tend to have anger problems more often that they express in a physical way. We can admit that and work on those things without saying that all men are bad. It's not a one or the other.
So here's the problem with that, right? Overwhelmingly, men don't behave in this manner where they lash out and hurt people physically. So what you've done is you've prescribed that we need to work on male culture by teaching men not to talk like or not to act like this, not to physically lash out. We already do. We already teach young men not to hit girls. Just number one. We don't teach young men not to hit other boys. No, fighting is fine. We can fight each
Overwhelmingly,
other,
people don't
right?
murder. Should we
But
not work on murder?
okay, so if we acknowledge that overwhelmingly people aren't killing each other, why would we have a social movement to work on not killing each other and not instead improve the institution of the police force and the detective force to catch murderers? Wouldn't it make more sense to target the actual problem than every human being?
I think we are targeting the problem by saying,
Except we're
"Hey,
not. If you
these
say
things
male
happen. Let's
culture,
talk." Hold on, but we have to talk about things to target them in the first place. You
then we
can't
target
say,
those
hold on.
things, but you don't
You
say it's
can't
male
say let's
culture.
let's dig down and fix these things, and at the same time whine about the fact that we're acknowledging they exist in the first place. It is
Well,
crazy
no.
to me how easy this side of the ideology is like upset and offended over the most innocuous shit while they're pretending and putting on this facade as like these paragons of masculinity. It's a
This is silly to me.
grift. It's a
I'm not.
grift.
Listen, I'm not those men. I think that young men feel this pain. I talk to them on my Discord server. I get emails from them. I talk to these young men who are in this pain, who are lonely. I'm not sitting here pretending that I actually He-Man was incredibly emotionally available, so I can't even say I'm He-Man. I'm not Don Toretto. I'm not one of those guys. I'm saying that young men have felt this pain, and young men are upset with the way that they've been treated by the left. I think that's pretty clear. I think young men are upset with the way that they were treated by women that they loved, that they tried to court, that they tried to be around. In some ways, I'm a little upset about it. And I think that I'm well within my right to be upset about it. And I think everyone who has heard the feminist message of rape culture, of being told that you have a potential to rape, of being told that you need to do everything you can to avoid raping women, as if there's some proclivity that you have in your DNA to do so, you need to avoid from start to finish, is unfair to a lot of men, as an example. Now, this is one of my first examples. I could probably come with more later.
I wanna toss it to Joe Lewis, who's also here, and see if he had anything to add to the discussion. And I also want to give space to Chris as well afterwards. So.
Yeah, this has been an interesting little back and forth. I think you're both kind of being incredibly bad faith and disingenuous to each other and not really understanding and internalizing what the other is saying to each other. But that's a totally other thing. You guys can sort that out internally. I will say that I think that there is something a bit more valuable to be had insofar as there are things that the manosphere and red pillars are saying that are correct, and there are things that the blue pill, however you want to describe it, even though I think the blue pill is just like kind of like a faux aesthetic at this point. I don't think it's anything but like a legitimate type of like driving force outside of few particular
there is
spaces.
no movement equivalent, it seems like.
Okay, thanks, 𝕬𝖎ₓ. So with that being said, I think that you can take the good things that the manosphere espouse that are honest truths from men and figure out how can we, and by we, it's like individuals who believe themselves to be on whatever you think the left is, to kind of like sort of clarify the language. Because I do think to Xerx's point, and he kind of is implying this in his language, is that the manosphere, like any other movement, is getting co-opted by different groups of people who have bad faith intentions. A very common example of this is 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example. Pretty grifty, you would say. Or at
She's a
least it's
plantation
more
owner,
she's become
essentially.
that way. I wouldn't go that far. But
She's a plantation owner. I'll say that. You don't have to. I'll say it for you.
Go, that's fine. I think there are definitely issues with Pearl and probably a lot of these different speakers. I don't think any one person is gonna be quote unquote the hero that's perfect and doesn't say the wrong thing or doesn't have problematic elements to them. But I think the long and short is, if you can distill what's true versus what is delusional or what is leading people astray, then we need to contend with that. Everyone doesn't agree with Pearl. Everyone doesn't agree with Andrew Tate. Everyone doesn't agree with each other. The problem with the red pill is you have, again, it's an umbrella filled with different people, and people within there constantly discuss and disagree with each other all the time. It's not one singular force or identity.
Sure, but you would be naive to think that there's a drive. Like, it would be naive to say that there aren't individuals who are considered thought leaders and pushing forward a particular message.
I mean, sure, but Pearl wouldn't be that. Pearl would just be regurgitating things she already heard.
That's childish to say. She's one of the largest.
Childish at all.
That is a childish thing to say, especially from that space. Do you know which individuals within your space have over 1 million subscribers that aren't named 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖏? Do not go to have them preaching your answer.
So Pearl, once again, saying things that we've already.
Please answer my question. Please answer my question. Please answer my question. You're not engaging with what I'm saying. What I'm saying here in particular is that Pearl co-opted particular manosphere talking points and the message of the manosphere and the formula itself from a feminine perspective, which is ruining any type of validity that the movement would have broadly. And then what happens is that because her following is so large and because she gets so many eyeballs, that kind of construes and distorts the outward message that you might potentially have, which could be a good thing.
What's the question?
The question I'm asking you is, like, let's just like engage with Pearl directly then. Who is Pearl copying, and why would you come to that conclusion of targeting the creator?
You're talking about, she's definitely copied a lot of different talking points from Rollo Tomassi, who even himself is off base on many different things that he said. There's
Sure.
some things that are true, and some things that are just silly and nonsensical. But essentially, she's distilled a lot of the talking points that we've had in the manosphere, you could say, or in the Red Pill for the last 10 or so years since I've been here. Nothing Pearl has said has been novelty to me. I've already done this sing and dance.
Right, but you're in a niche community, and she has outreach in places that you can't exist in. You recognize that, right?
Of course. I don't. What's your point?
And that's a problem, right? If you're trying to peddle that being a good message, and somebody's obfuscating that with the followers that she has and the reach that she has, like that's something that you ought to pay attention to, no? And how are you? And I guess the question then would be, how are you clarifying the language of what Pearl's doing is wrong within your own content, since you like to plug it a lot?
Oftentimes when I respond to Pearl, which I don't think I've done in a minute.
I'm not talking about Pearl directly. I'll ask the question again because you missed it. What within your content is clarifying the misinformation that exists from creators like Pearl Davis, Andrew Tate, Abram Preach, and others?
So when I respond to those people, I will argue with their points, explain why it's wrong, and then interject a much better thought.
Can you give an example of that?
Comedic or funny way.
Just for clarity, Tate, do you have an example of that recently?
Play a video for you right now? Is that what
I'm just asking. I can easily go through content that I've went to and articulate it. You can't do that?
I cannot do that. If that there you
All
go.
right, we can move on from that.
Yeah, it's a silly question.
I mean, I just it's kind of strange. I'm asking you. All I'm asking you is what particular misinformation exists about the manosphere, and how are you clarifying it within your content? When we recognize, I'll land the plane. I promise you, I'll land the plane and give you the opportunity to answer. I'll land the plane and give you the opportunity to answer fully. I'll give you that opportunity.
You're reiterating the point you just made.
Yes, but friend. We recognize that it's you and I having this conversation, but there's other people who are watching it. So I'm contextualizing completely for them, not just for you. Do you understand when I say that?
Land your plane quickly, and then I want to give Nico space. Yeah.
There's misinformation that exists from larger creators like Pearl Davis, Andrew Tate, and others. What are some examples where you clarify that, and how do you approach that? That's all I'm asking you, man.
So an example that I use in the debate today is the idea that young men are inbuilt to be promiscuous. I talk about the fact that it is unreasonable to judge men based on the minority when the majority reflects the complete opposite. The idea of having an open relationship on your side but closed on the other. I literally went on Playing with Fire, Alex's channel, a couple of months ago and debated him on the topic directly. So I will address this stuff directly. I apologize. I don't have a complete list of everything I've done at the very moment, but 800 videos, my man. I don't.
Hey man, like I have a lot of content too.
Well, let me try. Let me ask you, 𝕍𝖎, because I'm curious too. What do you think the top 3 things that the Red Pill gets wrong or does wrong as a general whole? What are the top 3 mistakes that they make that you wish the leaders of the Red Pill movement would just shut up about?
Instead of analyzing the problems within marriage, they just tell men to just avoid it altogether. That's a huge, awful thing to do. A lot of young men do want to have families, and they do want to be with women and have relationships with them, long-term relationships. So I think that instead of actually trying to break down and really figure out what's going on in marriage, instead of just saying women are gonna take half of your stuff at some point in time, is a huge disservice to society, honestly. Not even just the young men there.
Okay.
That's number one. Teaching young men that they need to be promiscuous or encouraging any degree of promiscuity is ridiculously silly, especially when you piggyback off the first point. If you teach men to not get married but to be promiscuous, you're going to be creating a bunch of fatherless children. That's not helping anyone. It's ridiculously silly. And the third thing would be the focus on materialism, which actually I think me and Chris agreed on, is that materialism, I think, is an awful frame of reference to build your life around. I think that a lot of your stuff is going to end up being really hollow down the end of the road. And in my personal opinion, I don't know if you guys agree, people make life worth living. The most important thing about life is other people.
Beautiful. Sad Kit Kat, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. This is an open discussion, so if you want in on this, if you have questions for any of these individuals, Chris needs questions too and address.
I'd like to just jump in on this if that's.
But just let me finish. It's open. If you want in, join the Discord, jump backstage. I'll pull you in. Cool. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So What I was curious about is what Joe just asked in the response that he was received. So, like, if the manosphere, like any other movement, is getting co-opted by people of bad intentions, at what point can we have a yet another actor in the Red Pill that pushes the same wild rhetoric come in before, when I'm being told that, like, this is no true Red Pill, that I'm just getting, like, no true Scotsman? Like, at some point, if this is who spearheads the movement, we have got to acknowledge that this is largely, like, massively fucking problematic. And given these three things that you've just said, like these three issues that you have, and the fact that all three of those things are being pushed by the mainstream Red Pill movement, then it seems broadly like you didn't come in here to defend Red Pill as it is being seen. You came in here to defend your own version of the Red Pill as you talk about it. And as fair as that is, none of my views have ultimately changed, because it seems like you also disagree with every element that I do of the Red Pill. You're just not as vocal against it as I am.
No, that's
Zico,
not true.
let me
I
add
am
one
absolutely as
thing.
vocal against it as you are.
Let me add one thing to his
800
point.
different videos against this behavior.
I meant in the context of the conversation we've had. Sorry, not your content as a whole.
In the conversation, I have been. That's not even true. I literally agree that this is
But you
wrong
dismiss
and
it as not
problematic.
being Red Pill.
Okay. What I said was you have different thought processes in the Red Pill. The ultimate umbrella is how do we deal with women? Do I disagree with how some people deal with them? Yes. If you want to call them red pillars, fine. I'm not going to
WQ, I
argue
like that,
against
by the
them.
way.
But
That's
Ziku,
funny.
you've also behaved in a way that's consistent with what Chris is saying, because we saw a direct example of this. Wick asked a question during the closing parts of who are, or maybe you asked, somebody asked, who are some creators that align with your ideology that you feel would be good models? Chris had like 3 or 4 he listed. You started to list one and then said, well, me, well, not me. Yeah, I guess just me. You only listed yourself.
I actually
And
listed
so,
Elliot Hulse first.
okay, so
Who'd you list, by the way?
two. Was there more? Did I miss it?
I would have to look. I can't think
Let's
about the
just
top of
ask
my
it
head.
again. Who are some Red Pill creators that you think are respectable, good people that have a wholly good message for men?
Maybe it's just not.
Elliot Hulse.
Maybe it's
Other
not
than the
even.
one, is there one? Is there more?
I mean, maybe
If I look on YouTube, I could probably find more.
If you looked up, so you can't recite them offhand. But
Offhand,
again,
no.
Chris had 3 or 4. So I think that plays to Chris's point.
Well,
though,
I think his
so
examples
when
are piss poor. I
but
actually
when
don't
you
think
do,
that
well,
Destiny
that's
and
fine.
Hunter are
That's
good
fine.
examples. So I would
But
disagree.
when you're doing this like no true Red Pill thing, right?
But I'm
He's
not.
asking you,
At no
okay,
point did I say they're not true
okay,
red
so
pillars. I
that's
said I
fine that we
disagree
disagree
with
on
them.
that.
So you
What
coming and saying that you're doing a
Can I
no true red
finish?
pill is not true. That's not
Yeah,
accurate.
but
Can I
let me
finish, though?
try to connect. Let me try to connect the dissonance here, and I
guess not.
feel the
That's
dissonance
fine.
as well. It's all
That's
good.
fine.
It happens. So basically, what's trying to be articulated here is that it seems like you're very invested in your content, so much so that it gives you probably sort of like a false perspective on what people are actually coming out and sort of like critiquing. Is that a fair assessment?
No.
You have over 800 videos, and even within when I asked you a particular piece of content, it took a little bit of time for you to answer. You don't see that as a problem?
No, I think the problem is that I'm not as quick-witted as I should be on these panels. That might be the issue. I'm ill-prepared to answer some of these questions. I don't think
But this is your content though, fam.
several different videos on a different topic that I can't recall specifically one good point there.
Zeke, here's where we do agree. I don't think you have like bad intentions, and I want you to know that. I don't agree with you on a lot. I disagree with a lot of your positions heavily, but I don't think you're like ill-intended. Here's a big place where we agree. I'm going to build a big bridge with you right now.
Be brief. We gotta, yeah.
Yep. You had mentioned earlier that like a lot of these young men, they need to be embraced, and that's something I strongly agree with. I do think that the left as an entity needs to quit being reductive with these types of men and simplifying them as just simply bad people. And we need to try to understand why they feel the way they do and work on addressing those problems. That is the way to fight against ideology we don't like, is to figure out what is leading to these problematic behaviors. What could lead someone to think like, well, women only want to fuck rich guys and so they're all whores. Like that type of shitty directional advice is good advice. What leads someone there? And we need to try to solve those things. So yeah, I think these men need help, and I think we need to do a better job of figuring out how to help them in a genuine and well-intended way on all sides.
If I may ask, I feel like, look, okay, if there's anyone in my audience who's more Red Pill adjacent or more a fan of a Red Pill, please jump in so we can make it less of a dog pile here. But a question for all of you, actually. what do women want? Like, I know we can't speak for every single one, right? 𝕍𝖎 has articulated that women want status, wealth, and looks and attractiveness, right?
I can add more to the list as well. Oh my God.
Yes, but let's stick with those three. Those are the three you articulated during the conversation. Those are the three, I think, fair enough, right? But I know we can't give a monolith answer, but do the left side of the equation, do you disagree with that? And if so, what would you say would be the primary things that women want in general?
I think it's no different than what anybody wants. They want to be in a relationship where the actions that they do and their externalization of their freedom doesn't lead to abandonment from their partner. I think that being in a relationship grants a certain type of freedom that we're able to just actualize in no other way that we have in society currently.
You can do that with anyone. So why would they reject someone then?
That's bullshit. But
that's not bullshit. If a short man wanted to love the woman as you just described her, he's going to stick with her. He's going to be there and not reject her for how she is. Why is he being rejected then?
You did not understand anything I said. You can go.
Repeat it.
On, King.
Yeah, it's if I can jump in, because I think that when I was trying to prepare for this, and I could have done a way better job, I found a study on this specific thing that we're talking about: the relative impact of looks, income, warmth, and intelligence on female this is specifically in online dating preferences. But I think we can extrapolate this if you disagree with that, we can extrapolate this to the general sort of populace, then just let me know. But it seems like the focus is that the short-term dating interest was primarily driven by physical attractiveness, as you would expect, and physical attractiveness served as the initial filter. So in order for this to sprout into a long-term relationship, or for there to be any hope of that, there needs to be a baseline level of actually finding the other person attractive, which serves to answer your question, Zeke, which is like, if you're short and if you're fat and if you're balding, then those are qualities that people, by and large, women by and large, do not find attractive. So if you can't get past that initial filter, then the sort of secondary, the long-term interest, which were identified as appearance and warmth primarily, and secondarily by income and intelligence, aren't going to matter, because all of that hinges on you fundamentally being attractive to that person. This is why I keep saying that, like, the whole advice of hit at the gym, choose like more suitable clothing, that's good advice, but that's milquetoast, because that gets you through the door, that gets you 10 minutes, but that isn't enough to actually build a healthy long-term relationship.
You respond if you like.
You guys still aren't even actually answering the question. The question was, what do women actually want? If your response is as such as I said, then we don't disagree.
I think women want to have a partner that they can see themselves in their actions. So what that looks like is going to be different from person to person, because we have a society, because of feminism, that among many other things, but feminism is a byproduct of this, where we have sort of like a market approach of relationships and stuff like that. So like, I think a better way of approaching it personally is that romance is a byproduct of other things, as opposed to being like the sole driver for it. Because if you approach romance as like the main driver,
me, please, like, because I'm struggling to follow you, and it might be my fault. Can you elaborate? So romance should be a side effect, is what you're saying?
A byproduct of other things in your life.
Such as?
It could be, for instance, like I don't understand why there's like there was some weird, it sounds like there's some weird vilification of the gym, but the gym allows for a level of discipline that other things just don't do. And like what the gym is trying to reveal, and using the gym as an example, is that you need to have something in your life that requires actual discipline, patience. And that's something that the gym, for a lot of individuals, for a lot of reasons, is the easiest thing you can do in terms of discipline. Now, granted, if you live your whole life and frame your whole life on discipline of working out as a means for romance, then you're running into problems.
Why can't it be programming? There's a reason why it's not.
You're gonna have to walk me through why you said programming, child.
Okay, so something that requires discipline, time, and patience. What if I self-taught myself how to program? Am I gonna be attractive to women because I had the patience and diligence to learn it, or is it gonna be my wide shoulders and my pectoralis muscles that attract them? Like, let's be real. What are we really saying? What is attracting women?
We gotta stop.
Like, it's not the dedication. It's you physically attracted Let's stop.
Come on, man. Bill Gates is ugly as fuck. Elon Musk is ugly
Okay,
as fuck.
so
All
so
these,
guess
a
what?
lot of these folks are ugly as shit, my
So here's
guy.
the funny
But the
thing.
thing
Here's
is
the
that
funny thing.
I would love to
Here's
land
what-
this plane. I would love to land this plane.
Go
Like,
ahead.
we can recognize that there are other intangibles that exist within that lead to romance. There's different types of things that are byproducts of this thing. You understand what I mean when I say
Let me
that?
take a swing at it. Let me take a swing. Hold on. I want to answer Wick's question. I'm going to answer Wick's question. I've been very patient. I've been very quiet. I am going to run over someone this time, though. I'm going to answer the question now. Nope, I'm going to answer it. Sorry. You guys have been talking for like 4 minutes.
Both of you stop. Both of you
It's a
stop.
direct response to
Both,
him, right?
both of you stop. Both
Jesus
of you,
Christ.
both of you.
It's just a rabbit hole. Doesn't even matter.
Oh my God, are you incapable? I will stop you if I have to. Both of you, stop. Good. We can't hear you when we're all talking over each other. So what we're gonna do now, briefly, we're gonna let you go, Falsers, and then Zeke can respond to both points at once, and then I want to introduce Temperance. So go ahead.
Thank you. So very quick 2-part answer. So people want a few things generally and universally. They want to feel security, and that looks different for men than it does for women. They want to be validated and respected, again, usually different for men than women. And they generally want status, right? Like all of these things are for the most part true. Now, the context of that status that they want is different. It's not universal. This is where I kind of depart from the red pill. It's not necessarily always being rich and famous. Sometimes it could just be like having a nuclear family in your family. Like that's what success looks like because your parents approve. But what that looks like specifically for women, that security generally means you're with a partner who can be financially independent or take care of a family if they need to. You are with someone who you are attracted to physically. It is good to just be physically fit because that's a generally universally good thing to attract people. But again, that doesn't fill the other components. And that's where we get these gaps in the ideology. The validation is really important. And it's a really big missing piece of the red pill of you have to be able to respect your partner, understand who they are, and help build upon who they are and add value to their lives as well. Everyone wants their partner to add value to their life.
Go ahead, Ziku, please.
I think the first thing is rather brief, and that is to Joe Lewis. I find it interesting that in order to make up for the fact that they're not physically attractive, Bill Gates and Elon Musk have to be extremely wealthy. I mean, the juxtaposition is almost night and day on that front. But I just thought that was interesting to address. Falsers, again, we find ourselves mostly in agreement with some slight deviations here and some sprinkling. So if we're still at the end of the day, we need to be physically attractive, then what is the most important first mover thing? If everything is predicated on this first point, what's the most important? In fact, what's
it's not physical
interesting enough,
attraction.
but it is actually,
It's
right?
not.
Because, and I can explain, right? I find it rather interesting that women can find themselves having numerous different stories of how these men didn't validate them, how these men didn't treat them well, how these men didn't support them, how these men didn't have stability, and yet still they end up being impregnated by them. Yet still they have multiple children by men who are not of this character you described.
Understand what I'm saying, though.
Hold on. Women want all of these great characteristics. I think that sounds wonderful on paper. I think that would be wonderful if that were the case. If it were the case, it would be not only self-evident, but we wouldn't be here having this discussion. We would all know it was true because that's what women pick. Instead, what we find are more people who are miserable, more people who aren't in good relationships, and more single parents. We find more people
I need
getting
you to
divorced.
understand what I'm saying, though.
Go ahead, because I want you to address what I said here.
It's not an issue of these things not being important. It's an issue of the gravity of the focus we put on them. Because while being physically attractive is important, and you're right, it's usually the gateway for it, right? But the problem is that alone, hold on. That alone does not fulfill what you need to have successful relationships that build happiness in your life. And so because of that, putting such a heavy focus on it, and almost an exclusive focus in many of these circles, is not sufficient. There is like an implicit message with the red pill that you can be an asshole as long as you're hot, right?
Yeah,
And that somehow you're going to be successful. And it's simply
That's women.
usually not true. The men that end up that way are outliers. There are plenty of really good looking men that are emotional wrecks that can't maintain relationships in their life. And they're going to be very lonely when that fades in their 40s. It's just not going to work out.
Okay, before you respond though, Temperance, I'm gonna give her them some space. I'm not sure if it's a he or a she or whatever. Temperance, go ahead. Floor is yours.
All right, can y'all hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I want to put a women's perspective in here since we got 4 guys here all trying to say what women want, and I find it extremely hilarious. So yes, a guy being physically attractive is a thing. I would be a flat out liar if I said it wasn't. However, this whole a guy needs to be 6 feet tall with muscles and a whole lot of money, and it's really just guys looking for an excuse to hate women for why they won't take them. And it's really annoying. Yes, a woman wants a guy to be self-sustaining because she doesn't want to be his mom. However, no, a guy yes, if a guy flouts his money, there is a good chance women will be more interested in him, most likely somewhat predatory women because they want a guy that they can get stuff out of, even if they don't necessarily want a relationship with him. But yes, women want guys who are self-sufficient, who are emotionally aware enough that we don't have to be their moms. And it's just really frustrating. I've been listening to this conversation for 2.5 hours. Oh, God. And it's just really frustrating when you got a bunch of guys who are sitting here saying that, well, women want this, women aren't a monolith any more than anybody else is a monolith. And to try to put these standards and requirements on all women, it's doomed to failure because it's not going to work. And 2, it's just, as a woman, it's really frustrating. All right.
Yeah, but what's also kind of frustrating is that the only reason why we ended up talking about women was a framing of a question by Wick. So then the question I have for you then is when a panel host poses a question about that, well, what do women look for? What do you think the answer should be from men who are on the panel itself?
Honestly, at its most basic level, the answer should be go ask a woman.
That's fair.
I think it's a
I'm not
silly
trying to cut
response. Something
strays
is
here,
true
buddy.
independent of its source.
I'm just trying to
I think that's
conversation.
crazy.
Either
crazy.
something is true or it's not.
We're allowed to hold opinions on it. It's okay if you
Exactly.
disagree, but the fact that you're frustrated that people have opinions about a question they were asked about, I think is a little absurd.
Well,
It's
It's a little disingenuous, but again, it's
Yeah.
disingenuous if you didn't know that was the point. But it's all good.
No,
You can go. I'm sorry.
Me and Chris were talking, and I did make mention of this over the period of the conversation. I did make mention of it, so it's fair. She's probably more frustrated with me over the course of the conversation, not that question. So I'll run defense. I don't think we got to jump on her too hard on that. I will say that something is true independent of its source. So the more defend my conversation with Chris, the reason why we can make laws and make language and understand the world is that we pattern recognize. We recognize that there's trends to the world that we live in. And as I said about the red pill earlier, you're correct that women aren't a monolith. That's why the red pill is working in probabilities. What is the probability of being generally attractive to women? Well, you've already said it. If you're physically attractive, if you have some status, if you have some money, you're going to be attractive to women for the most part. Is it every single woman ever? No, of course not. Of course, that would be silly to say that. But generally speaking, are you going to disagree that that's not attractive?
To Temperance, actually, someone's paid me to ask you a question, so you can respond to that. But I would like you to answer this question if you would as well. The question from Chapingro Steam Tech is, does she think men know what men want?
I would assume that most of them have some idea as far as what they would like out of either a relationship or just out of a dating experience. I mean, there may be some that are experimenting and really don't know what they want, which is why they're experimenting. But I would say, generally, I would hope a guy knows if he goes into the dating realm that he has some idea what he's looking for.
Yeah,
Do
but
you
the
think
question
most
is, do
men
you?
want partners, Temperance? Do you think most men want a partner?
I think it varies by man. Yeah, there are some guys who just want to go out there and just want to stick their wick into wherever they can. But yeah, there are
Even a sexual partner of
guys
any
who-
kind. But we agree, like most people want, they either want like a sexual partner or a romantic partner.
Yeah, don't
We
say
agree
it
with
like
that, right?
She said their wick, okay? So we all have an individual wick that we insert inside. And I want you just to think about it. We just have our own individual wick.
Can I give my back?
all the way in.
So Temperance, if people want to find partners, don't you think it would be beneficial for like those people to try to understand what those people want?
There's a difference between trying to understand people, and I'm even fine with guys having an opinion if that somehow reflects their own experience and that they're sorry, I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it, where it like if they're going if that's their experience and they're going into the dating realm and they're like, well, if I'm looking at women, that this is what I think they want, so this is the way I'm going to act. However, to go on a public forum and be like, well, women want this, women want that, is
Well, no, he said, "What do you think
asking
women want?"
is kind of
That operative word's important. He said, "What do you think women want?" Like and I think it would also be fine if people like spoke with their like certainty in their own life. I think just by virtue of wanting something, regardless of what it is,
Well,
you need to identify how to
wanna-
get it, and in doing that, you're going to have opinions about what
Wait,
you need
this-
to do to
wait,
get
stop.
there.
This answers my question from earlier, by the way, but you can go. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine.
I'd like
I
to
just-
jump in at some point as well for
Yeah, I
something
know.
that was said a little bit earlier.
I get you. So, Temperance, a question that I have then, since the complaint is that we aren't having a woman's perspective here. I'd like your perspective here. What do you think most women want? I'm talking generalities. What in your opinion is the thing that most women seek from men in relationships?
and
In a partner of any kind, right? Whether it be for a sexual encounter or whether it be for a long-term relationship, or what are they selecting for in your opinion? In general, what are women selecting men for?
so I can really only go by my personal experience. I can't say all women, but if I were to say generally just from my own personal experience, that mostly women are looking for some sense of safety. That they're going to have a guy that isn't going to beat the crap out of them, that is going to take a no for an answer when they get a no, that isn't going to treat them like crap.
Do you think that would fall under the word security? Maybe would security include that?
Yeah, I mean that's security, is having a guy who doesn't treat you like, yeah, that's security.
So then, so
Is-
again, I ask. So
Okay.
how does any woman end up in that relationship?
They
I
end
mean-
up with men who misrepresent themselves when they're looking for a partner. What are we, children here? We don't know how to connect the dots?
No, so that's the only way. It's only subterfuge. These men are just perfect villains, and they just do everything right until finally
No,
it's time
man.
to spring forward.
All right,
No,
so let's just like, oh, sorry, Tempers, go for it. Go cook his ass.
We were just talking about children. Let's talk about bad guys. Let's
Well,
talk about
yeah, let's
Saturday
let
morning
Temperance try to
cartoons.
take it. Temperance, go ahead, respond.
I mean,
have
there's
to think.
why a woman can end up in a bad relationship. Some of it can just be her own self-esteem issues. If she comes from an abusive household, that's the only treatment she's ever had, that she just thinks it's normal. So when she finds a guy who treats her that way, it doesn't really raise her eyebrows until somebody looks at her and goes, you don't have to put up with a guy that treats you that way.
I think it's
Contextualization of
wild, by
harm.
the way, that the first thing I said that people, including women, want is to be secure. And I had somebody come on and say it's crazy that men are on here giving their opinions, and by the way, women want to feel safe, and just agreed with me outright. We should make space for Chris.
That's a dumbass thing to say.
No, it's not. It's not.
That's
it's
the
not.
dumbest
It's
shit
an
thing to
absolutely
say.
fair thing to say.
Temperance
It's okay
walked
that you
into
don't like
this
it.
with her own perspective and her own view of it. You
And
can
it
say
can,
you
and I can
disagree
have an
with
opinion that it
but
was
then
silly.
framing it like that is pretty
Never-
bad.
Joe, I mean, you
faith.
came in when we were engaging with like positions and accused people of
Yeah.
being bad faith. So I don't
Yeah,
even
because
think
you guys
know what
weren't
bad
listening.
faith
No, I
is.
said you guys weren't listening to each other. That was
Chris
my
has
take.
waited like 2 minutes to go.
Oh, there we go.
5
Now we're
minutes.
not engaging.
Okay.
All right.
Well, first
There's
of all,
no point in
first of all,
engaging
first
with
of
it.
all,
It's
first
like
of
meta
all,
bullshit.
first of all, I
No
wanna
meta
make sure
bullshit.
Temperance
The
is
meta bullshit's a
finished.
conversation, dumb fuck.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
what do you want?
I want to make sure that Temperance is finished,
Very
and,
cool.
and if she's finished, we're gonna kick it to Chris. You done, Temperance? Do you have anything else for us?
But I was just sticking around in case somebody wanted to ask me anything.
Well, of course, you are welcome to be here. I just want to make sure you were done with your thought. That's all.
Honestly, I can't even. He started talking, and then I kind of lost where I was. So
Fair enough. Well, stick around. I'm not kicking you out or anything. I was just making sure you're done. Okay, Chris, you had some stuff to say. Now's
Yeah,
your
I
time
just
and
wanted
chance
to bring us
say it.
back to sort of like where we were before we started like dissecting whether like we get to say certain things and we don't. Because Zeke, you keep repeating something, and you've said this a number of times in the debate, so it kind of stuck with me. You say a story is true independent of its source, but that is only true if you aren't falling for a massive fucking selection bias, which I believe you are by listening to anecdotal stories and building up your entire world based on them. If I try to get with 100 women and I manage to get 5 of them pregnant, you'll point to the 5 as being fucking losers because you don't know or care about the 95 that rejected me. Red pill, at least the red pill that I'm talking about, not the red pill that you have an idea of in your head that I so profoundly disagree with, gives advice on how to fuck women, not how to be with women. So it seems like they are creating their own issues in perpetuity.
I don't think they could be the ones creating the issue if women are the ones that are selecting these men based on these.
Even if it's less than
parameters.
5% on like let's do some hypotheticals. Let's say it's 5%.
Okay, it's 5% of what?
5% of women will fall prey to a guy lying to them in order to fuck them, and then they will end up getting pregnant. Let's just bear with me and let's say that 5% is the number. Is that still a problem on women?
No, not at that point.
Right, so what percentage would it have to be in order for us to go like, well, women, you kind of have to sort your shit out at some point?
You can say 40 to 60%.
Right, so if it's not at 40%, if the success rate for pregnancy is less than 40%, you understand that by what you have just said, that so many of the points you brought up lose validity. Because it's not 40%. You're saying that 40% of women end up getting pregnant to these kinds of men and fall for their lies.
That's what percentage it would be. I'd say probably around there. Do I know if that's the case 100%? No. Do I know that we have an issue based on the experience people are having? Absolutely. I don't think that these people cease to be important because I can't say that they're 40, 60, or 70%. I don't know. I can't do a study and reflect that to you. I do apologize.
It's not about ceasing to be important. The reason why I've asked that question specifically is because in my worldview it is less than 5%, and you have like repeatedly attacked me over this, which it seems like you now agree, which is yet another thing that you agree with, that the red pill is full of shit on, but you still have the idea of the red pill in your head that is like above this all.
No, okay, so the nonsense is the fact that it's only 5% of women who are behaving like this. If it were the case that it was only 5% of women that were behaving like this, then we would see that it is a minority of society, except that it's not. It is the
5%'s a lot of people, man.
View of how men and women operate with each other. If you go into any real life discussion, if you go on the internet, you're going to find there's some friction or some disdain that young men and young women have for each other. Yeah, again, if someone comes up with the random idea that 25% of kids are being raised without their father in the home, or being raised, or 25% of women, even if it's a nonsensical statistic, that's still 1/4 of people being raised in this environment. Here's the thing that's also kind of silly, right? If we have a statistic where like 30% of young men aren't in a relationship, then okay, here's a question. What about the 30% of women on the other half of our species? That means it's got 30% of all people who are alone, who aren't able to talk to each other. That's a gigantic amount of people. It's not 5%.
That's not how numbers or stats work.
It doesn't
But
matter.
okay.
It's not how numbers or stats matter.
Yeah, I mean, you do manosphere content, so you don't do numbers. So, like, are you saying that, like,
Joke, before that, I just need to do some shilling. Thank you to 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 and Henry Tapp for the money. Thank you to Falsers for the gift sub. I'm trying to get 20 more bucks on YouTube side before we close out tonight, and I'm trying to get 9 more gift subs on Twitch side because I'm trying to get a Switch, I should say. I'm trying to get a Switch so I can play the new Legend of Zelda. Help me indulge in my Legend of Zelda fetish. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for the money. Thank you to Chaprin Gross Steam Tech for the $5. Really appreciate you. Give me money. Okay, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was just kind of like, I like that little two genders slide. That was really, really cool. Where it's like, okay, if we presuppose that 30% of men aren't in relationships, that also means 30% of women aren't in relationships. That's not how numbers work. That was my whole point. But
what difference does it make?
oh, apparently, no. So now it doesn't make a difference. All right, child.
If a whole
that was your point, my dude.
bunch of men are lonely.
Okay, cool.
To match them, what's going on? They're not lonely.
Sorry,
no
what?
lonely. No lonely women.
No, now you're shifting. Now you're shifting. You implied that if there's 30% of men that are not in relationships, then 30% of women are also not in relationships. Is that what you implied?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just dumb. So we can move on from
Okay.
that.
So if we have a 50-50 ratio, give or take, of men and women, and 30% of that ratio is single, the other 30% isn't?
Oh my goodness gracious. Do you want it, Falsers? You got a big brain.
I'm
So,
too
okay,
bad
so,
faith,
all
man.
right.
Too bad faith.
Too bad faith. All right.
Okay. Gang, kind of circling the drain here. We are getting up to the time where it's time for me to eat and do other things. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to especially thank Chris Speaks and 𝕻𝖎 for being willing to come and debate this topic. I know it's rather contentious. And thank you to my audience for sticking with me and watching, as Temperate said, 2.5 hours of this shit. Right? And thank you to my caller inners for coming in with your questions and your contributions. Really appreciate you all. Next week, Monday, tune in. I don't know what we're going to have Monday, but we're going to have something. 6 p.m. Eastern. It'll be fun. On Thursday's a big one next week. Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. I have an individual, Rora Pickles, who is wanting to say that we, in society, demonize abusers too much and we should treat them better. So that should be an interesting discussion. It should be fun. If you went in on that, contact me. It'll be fun. We're going to rate out. Chris Speaks, are you going to keep streaming or are you done?
Yeah, I'll stay on for a little
Okay,
bit. I've got some new
we'll
people
rate
in the
into you.
community. Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right, friend.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Waiting for the raid to finish up. Waits 10 seconds. Okay. Yeah. Thank you again.
Thanks.